A very good evening from the Nürburgring Nordschleife ahead of what is set to be a fabulous weekend of twice around the clock racing. It's the ADAC RAVENOL 24 hours of the Nürburgring Nordschleife for the 52nd time, and a chance for me and a few other members of our team, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, to feast our eyes on the cars in twilight hours, because this is a 3.5 hour session following the earlier afternoon session we had for a couple of hours, but this will extend beyond the hours of, or beyond sunset and into the hours of darkness. 9:33 is the exact point that we will lose the sun, and therefore laps that are very, very important as you target a good result in the 52nd edition of the 24 hours. This isn't qualifying done and dusted by the end of tonight, though. There's qualifying 3 as well for all of the cars that are not part of the SP9 and SPX categories. So very good evening. My name's Johnny Palmer. I'm delighted to be joined for this segment by Peter Mackay and Joe Bradley. You boys already have the advantage over me, though, because you were covering things earlier on, so you can teach me things over the next, what have we got, hour or a bit for our section, Joe.
Every session is a lesson in the workings and the machinations of the Nürburgring 24 hours. I think the important thing tonight, Johnny, is it's going to be dry pretty much all the way to the checkered flag. Everybody's checking weather apps. Everybody. It's big. It's going to be key all weekend, and I'm pretty satisfied with my weather app so far. It was absolutely on the nosy earlier on today, so it's telling me it's going to rain at 1:45, which is right on the nosy for the checkered flag. So everybody's going to be out there. This is the golden hour. The track is cooler, the air is cooler and thicker, the engines love thick air, and we could well see the fastest time of the week this evening.
It's also of great value, this session, Peter Mackay, because of the dry nature of it. But one thing we can expect, I think, this weekend, at some point during the race, is more rainfall. So maybe that combination of rain and nighttime hours will be useful as well. But there's also the chance of something awry happening. And we've got a session again tomorrow at 1:30, qualifying 3. And that's the sure test that we will have. The last thing we want prior to midnight this evening is disaster in a car in the barrier somewhere, particularly if it's a long way from home, because you might not get it back to the early hours of tomorrow.
And there was a few teams that flirted with that in the session this morning, which started dry and then ended very, very wet. And you know, for example, the defending champion car, the Fricadelli Ferrari, car number 1, it was caught about as far away from home as possible on slick tyres in the pouring rain, and Felipe Fernandez-Lazar did a great job to limp the car back on slicks in the pouring rain and got the car back safely. So as Joe says, luckily we've got much better conditions for the start of this session, and going to try and get an idea and dig in a little bit more to see who has got what in the dry. In the wet, we really aren't clear yet, because when the rain came down, it was in the first session, it was quite late on in the session, and it wasn't really worth it going out and going out and doing any wet running. So we're still a little bit unclear. There are a lot of question marks. When you look at the form of both the 2 rounds of the Nürburgring Langstrecken series and the 2 qualifying races, it looks like it's all Porsche. 4 wins from 4, fantastic. But when you drill in a little bit closer, we've got 9 sectors here at the Nürburgring, and you see different areas where different cars are better. The Audis are actually really, really strong on that optimum lap. So the Audis have got great pace. The BMWs are thereabouts too, but that's all dry. We've only had dry running so far in the Nürburgring this year, amazingly. So that's going to be something to keep a watch on through this session.
One of the biggest stories across all motorsport disciplines, I felt, last year, possibly bigger than what was breaking at Le Mans, was the fact that finally the stranglehold of German manufacturers was broken 12 months ago. Nobody quite expected the Ferrari 296 to be as quick as it was, and expected it to drop away, maybe after half distance, maybe after 18 hours. It just didn't. It carries the number 1 this year, quite rightly, but that would be a heck of a story again for the 296 to succeed. But I mean, one or two of you have already noted that the Ferrari's fast around certain parts of the circuit, to echo your points, Peter. Yeah. What do you think about that, Joe?
It was a very popular win last year for so many reasons. It was, everybody, well, I certainly love when a Ferrari wins, but the Fricadelli team, it was an emotive win, wasn't it? For Sabine, for all of that team that's involved in that. And it was a change of manufacturer for them, which was very brave. Yeah. And that Ferrari, yes, we expected that Ferrari to start to fade. It never did. And it was right there at the end. And, there was many a tear shed. There was many a tear shed in this booth.
It was, yeah.
And I'm still sad, and I was really struggling to get over it, Johnny, that I had to miss last year's N24. And I missed one of the biggest results in the history of this race. And yeah, Peter can tell us. He's worked out the sector times, and he can tell us where that Ferrari's strong.
But it's the only Ferrari in the field, I've noted now. So, they're up against it in terms of not necessarily the data, because a lot of the teams are here, even with the big German manufacturers, looking after themselves. But the fact that they haven't got another car in their team, and there's nobody else that they can go along to, even in Ferrari in one of the subclasses, to have a bit of a word, they're very much on their own this year.
That's true. And I made that point last year. I'll make it again this year. It's a numbers game. From a manufacturer point of view, it really is a numbers game. The more top pro cars that you can have in the field, the better. This is a race of attrition. For example, last year, the number 27 App Lamborghini was really, really strong. Had a great run of drivers. They were leading the race. They had a puncture about coming into the second part of the Nordschleife. They lost several minutes because it takes so long to get the car back. Fricadelli in the Ferrari, they also had a left rear puncture, but it happened just coming onto the Dottingerhof, so they only lost about a minute. So that is just pure luck, really. Because of that, and because Lamborghini only had one kind of big pro car, that was Lamborghini's chance of winning the race done. So yeah, the fact that there is only one Ferrari, that's certainly to take into account, but the car that they do have is mighty quick. Just adding to the point of why it was an emotional win too, two drivers in that car, Felipe Fernandez-Laza and David Pettard, both their journeys to get to that checkered flag were really quite impressive. David Pettard's story is a story of true tenacity and just not giving up and trying to get yourself in the position and prove yourself and fight. And he was given a great opportunity by Fricadelli, and he delivered in spades. Felipe Fernandez-Laza the same. He was about to go to Le Mans with Michael Fassbender in an RSR Porsche, and his driver grading was changed, totally out of his control, silver up to gold, and he was out of drive. Yeah. And he went to Klaus Abelin at Fricadelli, who said, come and drive with us. And the rest is history, as they say.
And he's back with him again this year.
Again. He's the only driver in that car returning to that car.
Yes. Well, I noticed there were a few newbies. I hadn't quite made that connection. So Daniel Karlwitz, Luca Ludwig, Nicolas Verone, none of those drivers piloted the number one Ferrari as it is this year. So Felipe Fernandez-Laza, the only returnee. We have had nearly 3.5 minutes of this session, but many drivers and teams deciding, in fact, to release the cars onto the Grand Prix Strecker and then do the lap around the Hyundai Curva, which completes the end of the lap, and you then go to the right-hand side of the cones, down the start and finish straight, and begin another Grand Prix lap. It's not the full Grand Prix circuit, because remember, as part of this weekend, rather than the Mercedes Arena, we're just using the Yokohama S. They feel they can give up that bit of track because there's quite a lot of Nordschleife to make it a rather long lap after that. But we do, this is the difference between a standard NLS race and the Nürburgring Nordschleife and indeed the qualifying races. It is the full Grand Prix track, so through Goodyear Spanger all the way down to the lowest part of the Grand Prix track at Goodyear Kehre, and then through the Michael Schumacher S, the Ravenol Curva, which is the more open S-bend, the left and the right, Ad Van Bogen, Vidal chicane, and then ideally, certainly in the race, you want to be turning left through Sabine Schmidt's curve and onto the Hatzenbach. So it's a rare opportunity to run the longest configuration. I suppose you could work in the Mercedes Arena as well, but that is never done, to my mind. But as soon as you're onto the Hatzenbach and you decide not to pit, then there is no returning until you're heading down the Dottingerhof, through Tiergarten and Hohenrhein, and back onto the main straight. One of the Bulldog Minis is a brand new John Cooper Works example. They have the more familiar shape, but the car that is about to head into the fast lane, number 317, is just having its final checks done in a cool kind of camouflage livery, but it incorporates loads of circuits on there.
Fantastic. This is a brand new world debut of this car. It's the latest shape Mini. The new John Cooper Works is going to make its worldwide debut on the racetrack. How cool is that, with the Bulldog Racing crew? And it's number 317. Now, it's a silent one because it's meant to have the 37 of Paddy Hopkirk from the 1964 Monte Carlo Rally. So there's a little hint back there. Now, we talked about the number 1 Fricadelli Ferrari and how things were going, reasonably well, what have you. Well, there's a little wrangle to that. They were disqualified from qualifying 1, that was this morning, for not running to the correct balance of performance. Now, prior to the race week, they were given a balance of performance adjustment where they had turbo boost taken away for the Ferrari 296 GT3. So perhaps they've maybe just not installed that in the car, maybe. But frankly, the only thing that they will lose is the laps that were done by certain drivers who needed to get the minimum laps in. So they just need to do a bit more running in this session. It's not the end of the world, but that might be why they were so quick in the straight. We might see that blunted a little when they're out there. We'll keep a close eye on that.
So all of the times are deleted, is that what we're saying, from qualifying 1?
In essence, yeah.
It effectively didn't take part in session 1.
Yeah. But this goes back to the level of importance of SP9 in Q1, 2 and 3. The standard qualifying session sort of doesn't matter, because although the number 1 car hasn't yet qualified for top qualifying 2 tomorrow night, it is in there as having the potential to do that. It's already into Q1, isn't it?
Yes, it has. It's not got any more or less chance of getting one of those 5 spots than it did. What it does mean, though, is that the laps that were done, like, for example, Nico Verone got, I think, 3 laps in this morning in the first practice, or first, because I keep calling it practice, first qualifying. That will need to be done again now. And when Fricadelli won the race last year, they did very little running through the sessions during the week. They kept the running to a total minimum to save the car, but you can keep the running limited for lots of reasons.
When you said that there, Peter, 3 laps of running, and you think, only 3 laps? That's almost 30 minutes of running in the car. That's over 26, 27 minutes of running in the car. Again, recalibrate our heads for the Nürburgring. It's all right, he's done 3 laps, but he's been in the car 26, 27 minutes. So it's Nico Verone. And he is a superstar.
Yeah, and will have taken to this place very swiftly indeed, despite him having to travel a fair distance to be here. He's got Italian heritage, but is Argentinian by the flag on his belt. Joe Bradley, Peter Mackay and Johnny Palmer for this opening segment of night qualifying. You can join the conversation at RSL_studio. Make sure you use the hashtag RSL_N24. And to further give you a list of penalties from qualifying 1, the 176 Pro Sport Racing Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT4 car. That is the Arno Klassen, Eric Ullstrom, Lorenzo Rocca and Jörg Wiebahn. They were pinged for driving too fast in a code 60 phase, and they will have to start the race from the back of their starting group. So there's no coming back from that. It looks like they've retained all of their times from qualifying, but it's not going to help them because they'll have to start to the rear of GT4. That's Group 1, is it not? GT4?
Group 2 for GT4, for SP10, yes.
SP10, yeah.
And everyone in that car has won this race before in class.
Actually, to further complicate matters, it's an SP8T car, so it's not a straight GT4 model. Is that still Group 2?
Correct, yes. It's running on Goodyear tyres, which may be one of the dispensations for why it's not in the SP10 category.
Yeah.
Coming back as well, those who joined us earlier on our coverage, the number 55 KTM Crossbow GT2 actually had a spin at the Goodyear Kera, the hairpin on the Grand Prix track, and actually made contact with a little Cayman that was, as it was rejoining the track, the little Cayman came around the corner and they made contact with one another. That car has been knocked back 3 positions on the grid for Saturday's race.
there's already a code 60 or certainly a caution heading down into the foxhole this early on, and it's the Schnitzelarn Racing SP10 entry, which is a Mercedes AMG. The 11 car has motored past that scene. I mentioned the 11 because it's the sister car for David Schumacher, David Thelenius, who is the driver we think at the wheel of the GT4 that's had a moment into the wall, it's being reported. Moritz Wieskerken and Tim Neuser are the other two drivers. But in the approach to the Fuchsrohr itself, as it goes down into the trees, I'm not sure whether it's just skirted into the barrier. The fact that there's still a code 60 out there and yellow flags on the approach rather suggests that Mercedes is still stranded in having to be recovered. So there's an intervention vehicle on the scene. And what are we? Not even 10 minutes or just beyond 10 minutes into a session. This is precisely what I wanted to avoid, Peter.
First lap out. And David Thillinis, he competed last year also in an AMG, but in a GT2 version. So actually a much faster or much more powerful car. Very, very quick down the straight, those GT2 cars. But going to the GT4 this year. But whatever you're in, this circuit bites if you make even the slightest mistake. And we had a lot of rain earlier. The circuit was getting completely deluged, and there are still damp patches out there. So yes, it might fear on dry tyres. The majority of the circuit is dry, but if you hit a damp patch, you've not got the tyre temperature, you're off.
Well, just to set the scene, we've got sunshine breaking through the clouds for the first time in, I think, 2 days at least.
Yeah.
We've been here, we have not seen the sun. Now, we mentioned the track temperature actually cooling off in the early evening here. With that sun now beaming through those clouds down onto the tarmac, we might actually see the track temperature stabilise or even increase if the sun is shining on the tarmac. It's beginning to get low in the sky, but we've still got a few hours of sunshine yet.
Not that it counts towards grid position, but on the timing screen, the 72 BMW, at the moment being driven by Daniel Harper, is fastest with an 8:21.487. Now, that time
this morning
was set earlier, wasn't it, in Q1, but he is setting green and purple times. What I haven't quite worked out is whether the sector times carry over from qualifying one, or whether that merely represents, or might represent, a best time in this particular session. I guess we find out in the next 3 sectors, because he's heading now towards Flansgarten, or beyond that now. Stefan Belofes not too far away. It's sector 7, which is very, very long. It'll take you the better part of 2.5 minutes to complete that. And then sector 8 and sector 9 are pretty much the Dottinger Hoor combined.
Yeah, sector 8 is the exit of coming out Galgenkopf to Antoniusbrücke with the bridges, and sector 9 is the Tiergarten, in essence. So it's, yeah, as you said, we talked about this earlier. Spa in a GT3 car, what's that, 2:15? Yeah-ish. That's just sector 7 here is 2 minutes and 25. Remarkable.
Sector 7's like a lap of Spa, time-wise. He's cleared some traffic on the Dottinger. I think he got a little bit of a slipstream as well, so we'll see if he continues towards setting what will be the optimum time here, and it's straight out the box.
Getting confirmation that it was the high turbo boost that the Ferrari was disqualified from this morning's session from. So I think what's happened is they haven't applied the balance of performance change, because coming out of the qualifying races they had turbo boost taken away from them throughout the rev range. So we'll keep a close watch on that number 1 Fricadelli Ferrari to see how much that is going to make a difference. We're going to get a really good impression of what is the difference between those two parameters.
So presumably just an honest mistake. They never would have thought they would get away with that. So it's easy to forget when you've got so many other things to concentrate on. Dan Harper certainly not taking any prisoners as he hopped over that instantly recognisable jump. Flansgarten and on towards the really fast part of Stefan Belofes and into the second concreted section at Schwabenschwanz.
So those sector times have reset. So that's the fastest time this evening through those sectors.
Yes.
Because that last lap through was a 9 minutes 30, which is about a minute off. So
well, he did a 2:41 through the very long Sector 7 that we're talking about, basically being a lap somewhere else in the world. So, I mean, earlier today, 10 seconds was shaved off that, because the best time was set by the number 98 BMW, one of the two Rover Racing BMW entries. So 2:29 is the best time that we had earlier on. And also the sister BMW, very good through the speed trap in that sort of area as well, at 233 clicks. But I wonder whether the purple times are counting. So, I mean, for instance, Dan Harper's done the absolute best through Sector 4, and that will wipe any efforts. It's only a 10-second sector, but it's wiped any best efforts from qualifying 1 earlier on. So I think these are legitimate sector times. And he's just done an absolute best through the first part of the Grand Prix track. So BMW looking strong, although, I'll reiterate, doesn't count for anything at this stage. It's only when we get to top qualifying we decide the true order of the SP9 cars. As now Jules Gounon is piloting the number 130 Mercedes AMG from Get Speed. And he is just about to go into the affected area at the foxhole. So on his right, a code 60 flag, down through the gears and make sure you're at 60 kilometres per hour as you hit that board.
That's one really quick part of the circuit. Coming out, in an SP9 car, coming out of Arenberg, you are carrying a lot of speed. You're exiting that corner sort of 100 miles an hour or so, and before you get to the bottom of the Fuchsroa, the foxhole, you're at 170 miles an hour when you turn in for that uphill left-hander. But it seems like the SP10 Mercedes there, the Schnitzslaan car of David Thelenius, actually lost it on the exit of Arenberg.
That car, by the way, the 130, the number 130, being designated to celebrate 130 years of Mercedes competition. I think we discussed this. The competitiveness, I think, of the Mercedes AMG GTs. I think they're going to be relying upon a wet weekend for them to be prominent. But if you look at the driver lineup, Jules Gounon in the wheel of the car at the moment, his teammates Maro Engel, Fabian Schiller and Adam Christodoulou. Where's the weak link there? There isn't any. So, you know, I personally would like to see Mercedes in with a shout, but I think off the previous qualifying races, I think we're going to have to wait for the wet to come before we see a Mercedes running at the front.
Last Mercedes win, it feels like quite a long time ago. I'm peering down your list.
2016. The last car to be on pole and win was 2016, Black Falcon Mercedes. So it's it has been a while for Mercedes, and it hasn't been from a lack of trying. They always come here with really strong driver lineups, strong teams, and we're up on the podium last year, don't forget, and we're on pole. So the pace was good, although their dry weather pace so far through the 4 races we've had at the Nürburgring hasn't quite been there. So that's why they're doing the rain dances down at all of the Mercedes AMG garages.
Daniel Harper didn't head on to the Hatzenbach for a second time. He just completed the Grand Prix lap and then sneaked in via the back door to pit road. So Dan out of that car to hand over to one of his teammates. So that's either Max Hesse or Charles Weerts. They're being quite brave there in that there's only 3 drivers assigned to car number 72, and there aren't that many other teams deciding to do that. The Red Bull team Abt Lamborghini Huracan, the Evo 2 version. Schnitzslaan Racing's number 11 Mercedes that we've already talked about. Within SP9, though, I don't know of many other driver crews where they are down to the trio, the typical way that you would approach Le Mans. That's now mandated, of course, whereas it's a bit more flexibility at this event.
Physically, that's a big ask, isn't it? 3 drivers, not, majority of the teams running with 4 drivers. Yet they're very experienced, they're very competent, they're very professional. But physically, that's a big ask. It's going to be interesting to see how competitive they are towards the later stages.
Particularly, here compared to Le Mans, yes, Le Mans is considered a major challenge in sports car racing, but this is by far the more physical of the two tracks.
And the thing is, Johnny, it's not so much the physicality of the track, it's the concentration level that is, the mix of classes, the eclectic mix of classes, the level of concentration that's needed to run through traffic here. The closing speeds are massive. And so, you know, that's where the tiredness creeps in. These drivers are very physically fit. They're young drivers. They're massively fit, training all year long, all year round. But it's mental tiredness, if anything, that's going to trip them over. And it's, again, another interesting aspect of this race to see a 3-driver lineup in one of the front-running cars.
There's a few, for those watching timing and scoring or following along, there's quite a few top cars which haven't gone out yet. For example, the 911 Manthey Porsche, the 27 App Lamborghini, the number 4 Bilstein Mercedes, etc. That is because they're not allowed to go out in the first I think it's 20 minutes or so of the 20 minutes of the session because they're already in top qualifying too. So they have to give a little bit away. And just as I say that, the 20 minutes has elapsed, and Aichan Guven is taking out the Grello Manthey Porsche. So right on, not wasting any track time, get out there and get out onto the Nordschleife.
Got a bit of breaking, speaking of Le Mans, some breaking sports car news concerning that event, because it had understood that Dorian Pin, who was due to be in the Iron Dames car, which is, I wanted to try and get you a number.
85 Lamborghini for Iron Dames.
Iron Dames Lamborghini Evo 2 for Sarah Bovey, Michelle Gatting, and it was meant to be Dorian Pin, but she was injured in a Formula Regional European Championship race at Spa. We're now hearing that Dorian will not be able to take part at Le Mans in only 2 weeks' time, of course. So going to be replaced by Rahel Frey instead. Rahel, obviously a regular Iron Dame herself, so she'll just be plugged in and, we'll know that car anyway. But being diagnosed with a multiple rib fracture has Dorian Pin. And that might take some time to come back from as well, because rib injuries, they're just left to heal, aren't they? You can't really do much about them.
You can't do anything about rib injuries, Johnny. It's about the cartilage, not necessarily the bones fracture as well. The only thing that heals rib injuries is time, that clock ticking, and that's probably why so far out from, all right, we've got test weekend next weekend, but so far out we've been able to make that call. She's not going to be fit enough to be able to take the rigours of that race in those cars. And that's a shame.
Sterling work as ever from the two boys that are here this weekend for Sports Car 365. Dan Lloyd, and had a good sit-down chat with Davy Avema earlier on as well. Gathering stories, of course, from this event, but also having to keep their eyes on Le Mans Test, which is a week this Sunday, and then the latest edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans the following weekend. So Dorian Pin out of the 85 car, and Rahel Frey will be in instead. Back to the matter in hand. Dan Harper brought the 72 BMW into pit road after a scoot around the Grand Prix lap. He had just done a 9:28.5, and that car remains in the pit lane. And also the number 11 car, which has been second fastest from this morning, the Schnitzelarm racing car. Jamo Hertling, who has recently been at the wheel, sharing that car with Marcel Markovits and Kenneth Hyatt. Again, not going to be second fastest necessarily on the grid, but is outpacing all of the pre-qualified cars for top qualifying 2 so far. Those cars that are already in that we know of. The 911, which is third fastest, and Aichan Guven, who's just taken that car over. 27 Lamborghini is already qualified. That is fourth fastest when you've combined the 2 sessions we've had so far. That's the Red Bull team at Lambo Huracan. And also in is the number 15 car, which is the entry from Sherasport PHX. They have a garage basically to themselves this weekend, 2 Audis and a Porsche. And when you walk into garages that have got 6 cars in them, you suddenly walk into Sherasport and think, right, you've got it easy, fellas. Even if they did have dramas with both of their cars, both of their Audis at the same time, there's plenty of room to get them in and serviced, and rather quickly.
That could be critical to be able to do that work quickly. I think Audis are really the dark horse. It's strange to say they've won the race so many times here at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, but it's it's a new era, if you like. And but the Audi R8, yes, it's been around seemingly forever, but looking at the pace, they are looking really, really strong, quietly so, certainly in the dry. And Sheriff Sport PHX, the PHX is the old Phoenix team, the second most successful team in history at this race. If they win on Sunday afternoon, they will tie Manthey Racing for the record number of wins for a team at this race. 7 wins is the record that's being chased down.
I just realised I was giving Daniel Lloyd a retro thanks for his work on Sportar 365. He's actually moved to another publication now, even though he and Davey Avema are sitting right next to each other in the press room. So that was a slight oversight from my point of view, but he did put quite a few years of sterling work in for the website. So thanks, Dan, and we wish you well for your new venture.
That's what confused you, Johnny. You saw them sitting together, so you thought they were...
Well, they're obviously still mates, which is good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Which is nice. Very busy racetrack out there, because I'm seeing that no one's getting anywhere near their times from the earlier session. However, a shout out to the number 112, who's a car that's the Kramer Racing Porsche in the Cup 2 class. Fidel Glebe at the wheel of that car. He's sharing the car with Karsten Kramer, Jan-Erik Sluten and Jakob Reigel, and that car's put in its fastest time of the day there, but it's still 9:50 and still a little bit off the pace of the class 2, or the Cup 2 I should say.
If you're not in the top class and trying to get a good spot on the overall grid, this is not the ideal start to the session. In the dry conditions, bit of sunshine out there, and we're still got yellow flags at Arenberg, slow zone Arenberg, and then a code 60 through Arenberg and Fuchsroe, the foxhole as it's sometimes known as. So that whole area, I mean, really, if you have a code 60 or a yellow flag anywhere, that really knackers the optimum lap time. So you do need a clear run, and it's a rare treat getting those 9 clear sectors here at the Nürburgring.
Kuba Gamaziak's clearly having a lot of fun in the number 34 Valkenhorst Motorsport B. No, hang on.
Aston Martin.
That was a deliberate error on my part, unlike just previously. People that are coming back to the race after having not necessarily followed the story of Valkenhorst Motorsport. They were with the German manufacturer last year, but that's an across-the-board change, isn't it?
Big
including
change.
the 34.
Huge change.
I mean,
they were so synonymous. Valkenhorst Motorsport has been so synonymous with BMW for so many years. I mean, Mr. Valkenhorst, Henry Valkenhorst, is racing a classic M3 in the Youngtimer race on Saturday morning. They have a car dealership with BMW, so they're very intertwined with that brand. So to see them switching to a non-German brand, particularly, but to move to Aston Martin, it's a big story. It's a big story, just like Frickadelli moving away after a couple of decades with Porsche to move to a Ferrari. It raised a lot of eyebrows.
Do we know what soap opera behind that garage door brought about that change of mark?
I bet you there is one.
Oh, I'm telling you now, there will be a story about that.
Yeah.
It might be cost-led, might be some, but definitely a story.
Could be a variety of reasons.
I mean, the term Valkenhorst BMW rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Forgive me if I say that mid-race in the small hours of the morning. Because it does. They've been with BMW for years and years, and when you say Valkenhorst, you immediately think BMW. However, complete rethink here, because they've got a beautiful set of Aston Martins there that they are really getting to grips with.
And it's interesting to me how they've now dovetailed some well-recognised drivers with Valkenhorst who've become BMW experts with their Nicky team, who's clearly being brought in because of his Aston knowledge. But you've still got Christian Krognes and David Pittard in there, who were David Pittard comes from the Aston Martin side of things, but I'm sure he's driven BMWs before.
He's driven everything.
Nürburgring. How should we say? When he burst onto the Nürburgring scene, it was with Valkenhorst.
Yes, it was.
He met Frank Stippler, an Audi driver, at a historic race meeting in the UK, and Frank said, "Go get yourself out to the Nürburgring, go and race there." And David got himself in he got a drive with Valkenhorst, and I remember calling a race win, him and Ben Tuck winning in an NLS race, myself and Peter Snowden, and that really brought him onto the scene, and then he ended up with Frickadelli and now with Aston Martin.
So he's gone back home.
He's gone back
He's
home.
gone back
Exactly
home. He's
so.
gone back home.
Yes,
So
he has.
from
He has.
the Ravenols family.
He has. So no surprise to see him in that driver lineup. But you're absolutely right, Johnny. He's got the other side. He's got Aston Martin connections too.
Is that the common link? Is it all down to Mr. Pittard?
Is David Pittard the next? Who would you?
Did he come, go into a Valkenhorst meeting one day and go, boys, have we ever tried Aston Martins instead of BMW? Now there's an idea. And then he changed the whole etiquette, the whole focus of the team, straight there and then.
He's the mover and shaker in the paddock, obviously.
This is pure speculation, folks.
Total speculation. He's probably listening to us now going, oh no, you're going to get me in a world of trouble here, guys.
It's probably got to do with the price column of the parts list to an extent, to a point.
So 3 Valkenhorst cars, the 34, the 35 and the 36. That's nice and easy to remember because they're right together on the timing screen. It's the 34 car that is the pro lineup for Christian Krognes, Kuba Gamaziak, David Pittard, Nicky Thiem, and then the 2 Pro-Ams. Patrick Assenheimer's in one of those cars, Christian Bollrath and Anders Buchart in the 36. Henry Valkenhorst drives the number 36 car, which, they're all AMR GT3 Evos, the brand new car. Now, hang on a minute, this is not part of the plan with half an hour gone because an Audi from the
775
TCR class. It's the
TCR, yeah.
775 on fire on. Is this the Grand Prix track? Yeah, it's very, very early on in the lap. The driver is clear of this situation, but already past the pits and the sanctuary that area offers. And the engine bay is fully alight. And the problem is sourcing the right fire extinguisher in a hurry and having to try and attack this fire when most of it is under the hood. So the wheel arches and the air intake is the best place to approach, and coming at it from an oblique angle. But the problem is you're going to be chasing this fire all the way around the car potentially, because as soon as it's extinguished on one part, it then takes light on the other. And the danger is that this fire starts to take even more of a hold of an Audi, which is being perhaps irreparably damaged at this stage of the weekend.
The conflagration isn't being stymied by the extinguishant, which leads me to think that, hopefully the driver knocked the ignition off. If he hasn't, we've still got a fuel pump there pumping fuel, and that looks like a fuel fire. Yeah. It's under the hood, it's in the engine bay, and it is well alight. It is absolutely well alight. This is the last we're going to see of this car, I think, unless they can. Are they allowed to bring in a spare chassis if they've got one?
I think so. That's Raphael Hundeborn, who was at the wheel of the car. It must be terribly frightening for him to see that happen. Did well to get the car off the circuit. Now the fire unit are there with the extinguishant and getting the fire out. We did see this last year with a Golf that had an engine bay fire. The following day we saw the car in the paddock thinking there's no way, and then they were in the race.
Yeah.
Never write off endurance teams. Nothing is impossible with endurance teams, but that is the worst possible start to the weekend.
It took for the main fire truck to arrive and then basically overwhelmed it with extinguishing. One of those.
Well, it's actually started to burn a larger hole, a larger aperture in the top of the bonnet. So that's helped the situation. And now the extinguishant is pouring down the road and underneath one of the intervention vehicles. It's a dangerous game to be playing now to lift the bonnet to make sure that the bonnet clips have been released sufficiently. And Raphael is still being treated by the medics, who are thankfully on the scene pretty swiftly as well. But Raphael Hundeborn, thankfully driving a front-engined car, so he could see the problem straight away. Yeah. One of the worst situations if the engine is rearward of you and you don't actually know the extent of the fire and how much it has taken hold. But it does appear to be mostly out, but that's at least going to need a new engine and possibly other considerable parts as well.
There's a lot of wiring under there, Johnny. There's a lot of stuff that will just be completely incinerated, quite literally. And the driver got out very rapidly, and he had the wherewithal to be able to get himself over the barrier. I think he was potentially more injured from jumping over the barrier than actually, getting out of the car or with anything. And the car just bursting into flames as it came through the first turns here, which is that tight right-hander off the start-finish straight. And before you turned left, he knew the car was alight. He knew there was a problem, and he just pulled the car over. And thankfully,
something goes pop as he turns right through the first elements of the Yokohama S, and that's as much warning as he got. And actually, as the car is continuing to be in motion, coming out of the second element, the fire wasn't really that present. And then as soon as the car stopped, it's able to gulp in a little bit more oxygen, and all of a sudden it just starts to extend beyond actually the roofline of the Audi. That's how high the flames became. And Raphael, as soon as he became stopped, had to then release the belt, open the door and run, and then threw himself over the barrier, which was the sensible thing to do. But the worry is how many fumes he's taken in even before he's got out of the car, and that's what the medics and the marshals are doing now, just to allow him to catch his breath, and he is able to talk to them now as well.
Understandably, that's a
box of cigarettes he's about
to light up a cigarette.
He's got a packet of cigarettes in his pocket somehow, or he's maybe been passed one by a marshal. And
no, he had a packet in his.
Did he? Yeah, maybe he just perhaps feels that he needs to calm his nerves a bit. He was breathing quite heavily, understandably so. That's a terrifying thing to experience when a car, like you said, Johnny, didn't get any warning at all, but did the right thing to pull it off to the first point of safety near a marshal's post. All the right things. And yeah, the good thing is though, thinking of the positives, if you're going to be looking for race parts, being in the Eifel region is a pretty good place to be, because there's race parts like an RS3 TCR. They made a lot of those cars, so the finding parts hopefully will be not too much of a fuss, and hopefully they can get that car fixed in time for the race. But what a difficult start.
I will be amazed if we see that car on the grid.
Okay.
That particular car.
That exact car, yeah.
Reshell that.
Yes.
And keep the 775 entry with a different shell. But that particular shell will need extensive rebuild.
The VW Golf that you're remembering from last year, was that a full replacement chassis in the end?
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember.
I thought it was too badly down.
You could be right, Johnny, yes.
It's not necessarily burned a full hole into the bonnet, but there were maybe some plastic components that have gone very, very quickly and created almost a 2-foot wide gap that the extinguishant then could get into and really start to calm the flames. But yeah, you talk about wiring looms, Joe, and all the crucial bits of maybe in suspension as well, because the wheel arches were alight.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got brake pipes under there, you've got bits of carbon fibre, plastic, ducting, and all sorts. I mean, that's a massive rebuild. That's a month's rebuild back at the workshop. You've got to make sure that you've got to clean that out, take everything off it. So I really think that if they aren't able to reshell that or rechassis that, then it's the last we're going to see of the 775.
Dirk Vleugels, Dr. Stefan Leurn and Leon Dreiser are the other three drivers assigned to MSC Sinsig's EV im ADAC's entry, the Audi RS3 LMS DSG from the TCR class, as I mentioned. So 775 might already be our first non-starter, but we really hope that they can, if they can't repair that car, which seems unlikely at this stage, they can source some sort of replacement, and through force majeure they may be still permitted to start the 52nd edition of the ADAC RAVENOL 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. Live every session that these cars are out on track on the Radio Show Limited network of channels. RSL_studio on X, and if you include the hashtag RSL_N24, you can get involved, of course.
Talking of non-starters, non-starter tonight is yet to see this car out there. It's currently 15th in the running. Is the number 35. That's the Valkenhurst Aston Martin. It's the car that has Chandler Hull, Benjamin Mazietis, Patrick Assenheimer and Mike David Ortman. That car yet to come out at all. It's got a time of in 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Currently down the order, but strangely yet to appear, so I'm not sure why.
I think it's definitely a voyage of discovery for Valkenhorst. It's such an experienced team, but a completely different car, completely different manufacturer. There'll be so much learning going on. Yes, they've raced those cars so far in the NLS and the qualifying races, sure, but there definitely will be bits and pieces to get on top of. That's not the car that was in the barriers in the session this morning. So that car's been back out, so that's good. Although it was a very small impact on the Grand Prix Strecker.
I think that little back, when he backed it into the tyre barrier, it didn't really affect the suspension. I think he got away with it, didn't he?
Yeah. That car we mentioned, that number 34 Valkenhorst Aston Martin, it's out on the Nordschleife at the moment in the hands of Kuba Gamaziak. No, I'm looking at the one above it, which is the number 4 Mercedes, driven by Maxi Goetz, who's going quick at the moment, just set a purple sector in sector 6. So looking strong.
Maximilian Goetz is pushing in the number 4 Mercedes that has already qualified for top qualifying 2, but he's just done a 35.8. Again, that sector is a bit too short to know what he's doing for the majority of the lap, but a 2:30.2 through that long sector 7 is only, well, a second away from the best time we had earlier on in the day from the 99 BMW, 98 BMW.
The track, it appears, judging by the sector times, the track is getting closer to full dry pace than it was this morning. Even at the best we saw this morning, the pace appears to be better already. We just haven't had the headline grabbing lap time yet, because we haven't had a clear track in 42 minutes of running. So, but looking at the sector times, yes, there is quick times, particularly as you mentioned, Johnny, that number 4 Mercedes, the Bilstein Mercedes, 35.674. That's pretty close to the best that we saw in the qualifying races from the Falcon Porsche.
It's got a great look to it, actually, the top of the timing screen. It's got a BMW, then a Mercedes, a Porsche, a Lamborghini, then an Audi, then we go back to BMW and Mercedes. So all we need is Aston Martin and Ferrari to get their finger out and then join in that party. We've got everybody represented there. Tremendously competitive.
Yeah. And some of that's down to luck, as you say, about finding the bits of track that are green, because you may just be stuck in the wrong place. And that's why the rules have been centred around fast sector times rather than necessarily the fastest laps in the past, in terms of getting your cars qualified for the... it's not quite a single lap, it's double lap qualifying, isn't it? Tomorrow evening they go round twice for qualifying 1 and qualifying 2 for the top sector of SP9s.
One of the greatest ways at the Nürburgring Nordschleife to look at the pace is the combined sector time, as you rightly say, Johnny. The best combined sector time that we had this morning was the 911 Manthey Porsche with an 8:17, which was actually 3 seconds quicker on the optimum lap time than the car that was fastest in the session. That's how fickle this circuit can be. So once these slow zones get cleared away, once we get to full green flag running, then I'm sure we'll get better lap times than we saw this morning, because the track conditions are getting better all the time. And of course, we've got nearly 130 cars out there running around the circuit, bringing heat across the damp patches and slowly but surely bringing it up to good condition.
At the moment, it's really busy out there. We're getting nowhere near those competitive times.
No,
they're all a minute off
because of the slow zones. Yeah, code 60s.
Yeah, so busy.
Yeah, that's when they get a clear run, it's great.
There's a one just appeared at Brunchen.
Yeah, Tim Heinemann going through sector 3 right now in a best time of the session, very competitive. Car 16, one of the Scherer Sport Audis. That car 42.224 in sector 2. That's on the Grand Prix track actually, and looking strong there as well. So there's definitely pace in the tarmac now.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be. It's the cooler temperature. The tyres like that better. They're not going to overheat. They're not going to expand their pressure. They're at their optimum running. And also, we're getting the maximum out of those motors. Even the turbocharged motors, we are seeing the air being thicker, so there's more air being sucked in and blown into the motor via the turbo. So you do maximise your power output because of that thick air that we get at this time of the day. And we talk about that anywhere we're at, isn't it? This is the golden hour of any kind of qualifying session. This is where we're going to see the times that will come.
Code 60 just come up at Esbach and Brunchen. It was a yellow flag, a slow zone. It's now a full code 60, so something afoot at Esbach and Brunchen.
Tim Heinemann's not far away from that area. He's got to go over the top of Hohe Acht in a moment or two. Let's just have a look where he is now. Unless we've jumped to the other Falcon Motorsport car. Heinemann is into the long 7th sector now, and working his way with traffic again, and going to have to get out of the throttle here. Normally aspirated, remember, Porsches. They've not quite gone the turbo route yet, but these Falcon Motorsport cars looking glorious. The 33 and the 44 cars, and Heinemann was pushing like crazy. He's heading towards Brunchen now, in fact, so we may be able to flesh out precisely what's happened. Fabulous amount of fans. Oh, there's a slow car right in front of him, and going into the code 60 was that, perhaps. Wasn't sure which side of it to go. No, we haven't reached the yellow flag at this point.
Is that why the code 60 is there? It's slow traffic.
No, well, no, there's an intervention vehicle towing a further Porsche, which I wasn't able to catch a glimpse of quite at that point, but he hadn't seen it. Well, there weren't yellow flags. There was a car coming out of Brunchen very, very slowly indeed. No yellow flags visible. And did he go right? Does he go left? He eventually goes to the left, where there was just about a lane's width for the 44 Porsche. But that could have been horrendous. He nearly just slammed right into the back of the Porsche, despite there being space on both the left and the right. And he was able to apply the brakes enough to buy him sufficient time to then duck up the inside, which was the racing line, and into Eiskerver. And whilst all that's happening, the 400 Porsche is now off the road. This is at the bottom of the Grand Prix Strecke, though, and car 400, another Porsche from Adrenaline Motorsport Team Manhattan Wheels, Cayman S. Did that leave the road all on its own? Yes, it did. Fully locked up coming into the Goodyear Kera at the bottom of the hill, and with the front right tyres entirely locked. That car having to go straight on, being driven by Luis Ramirez, the Mexican.
Surprisingly, he brings the car to a stop in the gravel. Usually when you put the car, and he basically just missed his braking point, went straight on, and he should have kept it rolling, but I think it stopped because of a problem, perhaps.
That car is the only car in the field on next end tyres.
Good spot.
So we have
another tyre
manufacturer, which I think takes us into double figures.
Good time.
Can you name them all? Tweet us at RSL Studio.
I was told by John Hinoff before we got going that we were into double figures just about. It's when we get north into the 11, 12 sort of area. There's chance yet. So Nexen tyres, you reckon the only car on Nexens for this race, despite there being a sister car, it looks like, the 396. So you don't think that's on Nexens?
Well, potentially. Could be.
That's another Adrenaline Motorsport Team. Is it Manhattan rather than Manhattan? Manhattan Wheels. Is that a bit of a play on words?
Maybe. My headgear. No. We need to have another paddock walk.
We do.
And we need to find out how many tyres.
Nothing to do with the Bratwurst, do you understand?
Of course, research purposes.
Indeed so.
There's a rumour that there is beer being sold down there in the paddock.
In the paddock?
Back of the paddock.
I certainly saw plenty of that.
There's plenty of out there in the countryside. You can see that from the fans. In fact, I've never seen a fan yet without a drink in their hand.
So a lot of dogs in the paddock earlier.
It's bank holiday here. It's a holiday.
Corpus Christi.
It's a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
The Hindhoff was telling us they call it tomorrow's a bridging day, where they bridge the bank holiday today into the weekend to give themselves a 4-day weekend. The Germans are on holiday here at the Nürburgring.
Whereas in the UK we tend to favour bank holiday Mondays, there are an awful lot of bank holiday Thursdays in Germany. And yes, if you can then get Friday off as well, then it makes it a 4-day weekend.
It's brilliant. It's a religious festival of Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes this race is held close to Ascension Day, sometimes Corpus Christi. And there might be a third version of that as well, because it is a movable feast, this race, unlike Le Mans, which tends to favour the middle weekend of June and try and get as close as possible to the longest day to make sure that therefore the nighttime hours, the darkness hours, are as short as possible. This will move in relation to Easter, basically, so you can get an early Nürburgring 24 hours, and sometimes you can get a late one, which is on the other side of Le Mans. We've had that before with N24 being after Le Mans. They are 2 weeks apart in 2024.
10 is our count, by my reckoning.
All right.
They are Next then, Goodyear, Falcon, Hankook, Michelin, Pirelli, Yokohama, GT, Toyo and Dunlop. All taking part in this race. How cool is that?
The only one missing there is Colway Remolds, I think. I think we've got everybody in there. You've got to be of a certain age to remember Colway Remolds.
Johnny Palmer's not sure. He's desperate for this 11th, aren't you? You're one of the 11th, wouldn't you?
I'd love to be for the 11th, yeah.
10's pretty good but nowadays.
Dunlop and Goodyear is an interesting one because, you know, they're normally considered to be the same contract or the same umbrella, but it depends what part of the world you're in. Because, you know, for instance, there's a corner that used to be called Dunlop here and is now renamed Goodyear. So many different championships
different brand
have become Goodyear tyres. But no, you're right. Yeah. But no, I'm just interested in which cars are actually running on Dunlops. Because I thought that was almost a brand that was no longer talked about, at least in Europe. And then when you go to Australia, it's the big one. So anyway, well spotted on from that front. Meanwhile, the 821.487 has yet to be beaten in this particular session. Nico Varone is putting the helmet on. And was that Klaus Ludwig?
Yes,
in the
Klaus
garage
Ludwig,
of Fricadelli, because Luca Ludwig is driving in that team this year as well.
Record number of pole positions at the Nürburgring 24 Hours. 6 times a pole sitter is Klaus Ludwig. He's actually driving this weekend. He's driving this gorgeous D2 Privat mid-90s DTM car. Joe and I had we did have a drool moment of it, saying in the paddock the sheer amount of carbon fibre just everywhere. I think even the key must be carbon fibre.
Yeah.
If it's a DTM car, it's not
so
going to
loads
have a
of
key,
fins and extra bodywork.
No, actually, it was from the era mid-90s or earlier.
94, 95, I think.
It was the one before the era, just before they started sprouting those wings and extra, and it was very clean lines.
Okay.
From the E class. It wasn't A class. Was
C-class.
C-class.
Dario Franchitti era of DTM.
Yeah.
Do you know who we would need right now is Andrew Maria. He'd be able to tell us exactly, because he was involved in the DTM. He did. He did.
Yeah. Fabulous. Well, you need to point me in the direction of that when we next go on our little research mission.
We're going to be getting the steps in tomorrow, Johnny.
I think we are. Just under 8 more minutes and we will have had an hour of this session. It's due to run for 3.5 hours, so from 8 p.m. to 11:30. We're not quite therefore going into Friday morning, but some very useful evening running. This is the team then that had so much success and perhaps a big surprise last year. Fricadelli Racing Team with their victory in the 51st edition of the Nürburgring 24 Hours. And it would be quite some feat if they could at least be in the mix, say, after the 12-hour mark, to be still on the lead lap and only a minute or so away from the race lead. That would be a dream scenario. They've had their times deleted from qualifying 1, but that won't be a huge issue for them. They will have known their mistake, and better to get an error such as that, i.e. not applying the latest balance of performance for your turbo permitted levels. Make that mistake in qualifying 1 rather than the first hour of the race.
Thank you very much to René de Boer, who's written in to say that Manhattan is what people sometimes call Frankfurt, which is Frankfurt am Main. Is its full name, because of the relatively high number of tall buildings there. Of course, big financial centre. So there we go, Manhattan, Wales, Frankfurt. Thank you very much, René de Boer, for that.
That's a bit of local knowledge there, although René's Dutch, isn't he?
It sounds very Dutch to me.
I'm sure he's Dutch.
Doesn't matter.
Clearly, he spent a lot of time
for the information.
in Germany, and he'll be hard at work on this event as well. Right, I won't forget that moving forward. Manhattan wheels. There are 2 cars later on in the entry. It was 396, I said. Yeah, 396 and 400 that could potentially be both on the Nexen tyre from the V6 category. Charles Weerts now has been plugged into the 72 BMW that remains the fastest car so far, sitting on this 821.487. But the last lap completed, again, majorly affected by code 60s, just under the 9-minute marker.
I know it's not important for the number one Ferrari regarding time-wise, but it just shows how busy a session this has been. 9 minutes and 8 is the best lap from Ludwig at the wheel now. He's due in, as we saw Nico Veron about to take over the number one Ferrari, but currently 53rd in the field, so unable to get a clear lap. I mean, we're seeing obstructions, slow zones, code 60 zones appearing throughout, and that's been from the very off this evening, hasn't it? I don't think we've had a clear 5 minutes yet.
Charles Verts in the code 60 is right up behind the Conrad Lamborghini, and is flashing the lights at the Conrad Lamborghini, obviously feeling that his cruise control or pit limiter or code 60 limiter is not quite as aggressive as theirs. So going through the code 60, making his thoughts well known. Lots of chat going on in the Fricadelli garage. Of course, Rinaldi Racing helped to run the car. Yes, it's Fricadelli Racing, but Rinaldi are hugely involved. Rinaldi actually run the LMP3 rinaldi that Klaus Abelin sometimes drives in Michelin Le Mans Cup and the German Prototype Cup, along with Felipe Fernandez-Lazar. And the Rinaldi engineers in the garage there chatting away with Luca Ludwig, who knows the Ferrari well, drove it last year for another team, and of course Felipe winning the race last year in that Ferrari.
That's where the Ferrari knowledge comes from.
Yes.
Fricadelli, isn't it? Underneath, peel back the Fricadelli sticker, there's
Rinaldi. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, on the side skirts of the car it says Fricadelli powered by Rinaldi Racing, so it's there. Rinaldi are very much front and centre. Great to have the Dacia back. We thought we wouldn't see it back after a big accident during the night last year, but it's risen from the ashes. It's a new chassis and it has a new engine, Johnny. It's got a turbo motor in there.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an SP3T this year.
So they've uprated the power unit in car number 318. This is the Oliver Krieser, Michael and Yannick Lachmeyer and Maximilian Weissemel who drive the Dacia Logan. So as you say, SP3T is its new home. We'll be racing a Mini John Cooper Works Pro car, an Audi TTS, amongst other things. So yeah, we'll try and keep you tabs on how the Dacia's doing throughout the 24 hours. An automatic fan favourite. The barrier work, by the way, is now the major issue in the foxhole. So the Schnitzelarm Mercedes that caused the problem, the treble one car, looked to have been recovered, but there is a Unimog in situ with trailer and new Armco bits, potentially struts as well as horizontal slats as well, and that's often the bit that takes the time. So the code 60 will remain in place for a fair bit yet, and that might even take us beyond 9:30, which is official sunset.
Good opportunity here while there isn't the track condition, i.e. a clear 9 sectors, to get all your drivers cycled through, get all their minimum laps done, get that all out the way, go through systems checks, etc. Even scrubbing in new sticker tyres. Yeah. There's lots that can be done. These sessions are never ever wasted, particularly when they're dry. So we'll see. And for some of the teams, you know, they've got drivers who are here in this race for the first time, and track time for them is absolutely vital.
There's also the attraction of this transition stint as well, because we're going to be going from the twilight through into darkness, and you might have allocated a driver to do that stint in the subcategories. So it's important to know where the sun could potentially catch you out, so that you have fair warning of that come the race.
Official sundown 21:33, so we're just over half an hour away from that.
Yeah. But it's also important to know where the sun's going to appear as it rises too, and that's not going to be dealt with during the qualifying sessions. Might be a bit more guesswork, therefore, as the sky rather turns a rich colour of yellow and amber on Sunday morning, and the sun then will start to blind you in the opposing parts of the racetrack. This is a fabulous time to be trackside, and welcome if you are, because there's something that changes with the acoustics, I always feel, as well as you head from the daylight into the darkness. Sound just seems to reverberate a little bit more once we've waved goodbye to the sun, and particularly then depending on where you are around the track. If you're in the more dense forest area around the carousel, you can hear them coming for probably minutes away before all of a sudden a group of SP9s appear at the Caracciolo carousel.
The fans who have been coming in here since Monday, Tuesday this week, they really deserve this nice twilight session because they've braved the elements all week, and now a twilight session at the Nürburgring as the sun comes down after what we arrived to this morning where it was hosing it down with rain. They really deserve this, and this is why you travel to come to this special event that is, you know, they'd say in the Masters Golf, they say it's a tradition unlike any other. Well, this is a motor race unlike any other. You've got to come and see it to believe it.
There's so many differences. For instance,
everything.
The length of the lap. You have to recalibrate. We mentioned there, Sector 7. Only 7 of what? 9 sectors, isn't there?
9 sectors, yeah.
That's the length of lapping Spa. One of the longest tracks. We call that a conventional track. This isn't a conventional track. It's a
conventional 3-sector track.
Yes, indeed.
So this track is 3 times that before you've even started.
Absolutely. And not only do we ourselves have to calibrate the way we think about this race, but also the teams. And you know, I mentioned earlier that 3 laps Nico Verona in the Ferrari. And that was almost half an hour. It was literally 29 minutes, just under 29 minutes. That all of that recalibration is not just here, but also on the pit wall as well.
And the minimum pit stop times, the way the balanced performance works, 10 tyre manufacturers and so on.
The way we're qualifying.
Everything. Oh, that's a big adjustment too, for sure. And speaking of Nico Veroni in that number 1 Fricadelli Ferrari, he's just gone purple through Sector 4, one of the shortest sectors on the track, but important nonetheless. It's effectively coming out of Flugplatz, the very fast uphill right-hander down towards Schwedenkreuz, the really, really fast left-hander. It's only 10 seconds long, but it gives us a very slight impression on top-end speed. And I hope they're now running in the correct BOP configuration in that Ferrari, because it is still really, really fast on top end.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. We thought that wasn't going to be the case with that being rectified and sorted out for this evening session. So that I think that's good. That's good news. It's not going to be long before we get the Ferrari back up there.
I'm no aerodynamicist. That's probably no surprise to anyone either watching or listening. But you look at that Ferrari, it just looks like an aerodynamic shape. It looks low drag.
It's because it's a Ferrari.
It looks sleek.
It looks like it's doing 120 miles an hour when it's
got a bit of you about it, Joe, I think.
Do you think so?
Yeah, it's red and white as well too.
Got the massive backside, that flare, the flared arches. We've discussed this. The 296 reminds me of a P330, where those rear arches curve around the lines of that Ferrari. When whoever designed that 296 must have been looking back over the designs from yesteryear across the history of Ferrari and gone, we'll capture a bit of that, we'll capture a bit of that, and then they've given it to the aerodynamicists and said, please make that work.
There's your box.
Please make
work
that
as
work.
well as you can within it.
They have. I mean, look at how successful the car has been.
Thomas Breining darting to the right-hand side as he hits the base of the carousel. So that right-hander at Style-Strecker, the very old track, departs left there and goes right up the hill to reconnect at Hohe Acht. But instead, the track we're more used to takes virtually a hairpin right-hand bend, and then obviously the carousel is another hairpin, but at a very steep and concreted angle. Well, there are 2 elements of that angle, actually. The concrete, the more steep, but you can, I've noticed in the very wet weather, you can some cars stay out deliberately wide.
You know, the
camber angle is shallower.
When that was designed in the 30s, that was a drainage pitch.
That's right.
And it was.
So you were meant to stay on the high.
Meant to stay on the tarmac, and it was Rudolf Caracciolo who hooked the drainage ditch. I mean, I think it's been refined a little bit. It's a bit perhaps rough around the edges back in the 1930s, but it's become perhaps the signature corner of the Nürburgring. If you look back to when Formula One was here for the German Grand Prix, and you look at those halcyon days of Jackie Stewart throwing the Tyrrell into there and bouncing through the carousel, and from that, the 1000 Ks that used to run here with the Porsche 962s and the 956s, and the carousel. You look at the carousel, and you immediately know what racetrack you're talking about.
Yes.
You know, it's such an iconic part of the racing heritage at this place, and its signature really.
We've got a little bit more information on the Treble 1 Mercedes from Schnitzelalm, which had its connection with the barrier drivers left into the Fuchsrohre, and the Armco on the left-hand side is still being repaired. I should put it straight that it's not a Unimog. It's actually a more standard HGV type lorry which carries Armco bits on the back of it, and then there is a trailer behind it, but it's still at the scene being covered off by a circuit vehicle. But the team boss at Schnitzelalm, Thomas Angerer, says, we don't know exactly what happened. David Thelenius has reported that he's fine so far. The car looks badly damaged. It's a real shame. Nothing is at stake on the Thursday before the 24 hours. It was the first lap and not even a timed one. The driver's statement was that someone drove into him from behind, and we now have to check the onboard recordings. David is a very experienced driver, and I think very highly of him, and we will now try everything to get the car back on the start line. So those comments from Thomas Angerer relating to nothing is at stake on a Thursday and it's the first lap, rather targeted towards the other car involved, I would suggest.
Perhaps when he gets back to the garage, David Dillines, I'm sure he'll be really down in the dumps. There's all the preparation that goes into this race. It's the big one of the year for many of these drivers. When he gets back, they should definitely console him with a nice, make sure he's got a schnitzel and some potatoes, maybe some chips, just to cheer him up, because you need that comfort food when something like that's happened.
It's Mackay's answer to everything this week. Schnitzel.
Schnitzel. Well, I think it's the answer to most things in life.
Peter? Schnitzel. Would you like a cup of tea? No, I'll have schnitzel though.
Schnitzel with schnitzel.
All week.
I had 3 at lunch yesterday.
There's no denying good taste at ADAC, that's what I'll say. No denying good taste. Well, Schnitzelalm Racing are the guys to head for, I would rather suggest.
That is his team, though.
I know it is.
Yeah. That's the team to drive for. So if my lotto numbers come in and I come and take this race on, that's who I'm going to
buy loads of schnitzel.
That's so Nico Veroni. Nobody is able to set a indicative lap time here with the Arenberg and Vauxhall slow zones, but set many personal best sector for that number 1 Fricadelli Ferrari, and one absolute best sector too. So really strong performance. Nico is a rookie at this race, but when we spoke with him for Midweek Motorsport yesterday, he said he knows the track really, really well. He says, I do a lot of sim racing, a lot of 24-hour sim races, and I've done many. He didn't give a number, but he says, I really know the track well, and he said it's very similar. I found it very similar to the sim. Problem for the number 3 Bilstein Mercedes had a spin on the Grand Prix circuit. Michael Lachmeyer.
Harmless though, I think he's rejoining. From the car back around. The number 3 currently with Bird at the wheel.
Yeah, I was thinking Michael Lachmeyer's not in that car.
No, whereas Frankie Bird is in. Driving the number 3.
Yeah.
That was a weird one, because he was kind of coming out of the corner.
That out the wall.
He came out the corner and the car just snapped left, and I don't really understand why.
Too much right foot, Johnny.
Okay, well, fully dry conditions there. The car will be on slick tyres, and it didn't look like he was pushing like crazy, but I have to say, I've only been able to witness it again via a slow motion version.
Wasn't on an
I'd like to see that again at full speed.
Wasn't on an outlap there, was it?
Interesting. I'm not.
That would have explained that. The cold tyres, easy to spin up the cold tyres.
P-Max on the case. I'm not quite on the right page.
I don't think it was.
Timing and scoring.
It's just got him as running.
Doesn't seem so.
No.
Yes, sorry, he was, yes, because his first sector is 4 minutes 53, so that would have been in the pits. Right. So yes, it was an outlap, so yeah, cold tyres very likely. And Frank Bird did very, very well to keep that car out of the barrier on the Grand Prix circuit there. Of course, Frank won his class last year in a GT2 Mercedes. And then going to the GT3 this year with Mercedes AMG team Bilstein, run by the Haupt Racing team.
Would you like a bit of an idea of who's doing what class-wise?
Please.
The thing is anyone going to have improved with the slow zones? I don't think so.
Well, I don't know, but we might have viewers and listeners that are just joining us.
True, good point. Yeah.
But the key thing about this session and then qualifying 3 tomorrow is that that's all you get if you're not in SP9 or SPX. So this is a genuine qualifying session for all of the other 21 classes that will take part in this race. It's not all decided this evening, but it will have to be decided by 2:45 tomorrow afternoon.
I counted 23, Johnny.
Yes, but as I said, I wasn't including SP9 and SPX.
Yes.
I did 23 minus 2, which is tough for me to do, actually, at speed. Go on.
Right then, so disregard SP9. Cup 2 is being led by the number 148 Black Falcon team. SPX being led by the number 706, that's the Glickenhaus. SP11 is the Door Motorsport number 55.
It's KTM.
And the SP8T is the number 150, the team Bilstein by Black Falcon entry. The Subaru is leading SP40, the Subaru Technica International Car 88. The Hyundai Elantra TCR is leading TCR car. It's the number 830, one Bassing at the wheel of the car at the moment. SP10 being led by the number 169 Door Motorsport. Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsports leading the AT3. That's the alternative fuels class 3 car 888, and the alternative fuels class 2 being led by the number 320, the Four Motors team there. Cup 3 being led by the SRS Team Sorg Rensport car 959. SP6 is being led by the number 207 Hofer Racing, Martin Kroll at the wheel of that car. The SP3T class is being led by car 311. That's the MSC Zinzig entry. The Up to Race BMW is leading the BMW M240i class. That's car 680. V6 is being led by car 416. I've got no information on what that car is. SP7 is the number 80, the Pulseline Racing team. Adrenaline Motorsport team, Manhattan Wheels is leading the VT2 Hecker class.
The 416 is leading V6 is a Porsche Carrera 911.
Okay. All right, no team name there. VT2 front is being led by the number 486. V4 is being led by the number 711. V5 is being led by Adrenaline Motorsports team Manhattan Wheels. The car number is 444. VT3 is car 599, the Kevin Sports and Racing, and then another couple of teams without team names leading SP3 and SP4. That's car 275 and 152. That's all 21 classes there, 22 classes actually, not involving the SP9 or the SP9X.
Excellent. So there's still scope for that to change.
Yeah.
Has anybody looked at the forecast for tomorrow afternoon between the hours of 1:30 and 2:45?
Well, that could be vitally important, because if you don't get another go, then this session is going to be important. We've got a car parked at the side of the road coming into Schwalbenschwanz?
It is.
Yes, Schwalbenschwanz. It was a BMW. Couldn't grab the number on it, unfortunately.
So is that the latter stages of the Stefan Belloff?
Yeah, it's heading towards Schwalbenschwanz, and then up to the Kleine Carousel. Klaus Bachler was going to say he was on a strong lap, but no, because there wasn't a clean lap. But he did. Klaus Bachler there, who's just gone through that area in that 33 Falcon Porsche, which has been one of the fastest cars on the Nordschleife this year, set an absolute best in Sector 3. That's effectively the entire Hatzenbach from Sabine Schmidt's curve onto the Kiddelbacher hole. Interestingly, this morning, the Manthey Porsche was fastest through that sector. So Hatzenbach is Porsche country right now.
Weather forecast for tomorrow, gentlemen, is to be dry by 1:25. We are going to get a douse of rain about 11 to 11:30. We're going to get some light rain. That's going to last probably about an hour by the looks of this satellite imagery. So between 1:25, 1:30. What time's the session start? 1:30, isn't it?
Yes.
1:30 and 3 o'clock. There's going to be no rain. And then we've got the top qualifying course. That starts at 5:30, and at 5:30, gentlemen, there is going to be no rain.
So we could have a clear, dry shootout.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We may start Q3 with a damp track, or if the sun comes out, and it looks like the sun could come out, that could have dried up by the time we take the track.
That's going to be super exciting, because effectively we could see the track get quicker and quicker and quicker all the way through that qualifying session. So it could be last over the line job almost. That's how dynamic this circuit is. Very exciting. You'll have to tune in or listen in to all of our coverage tomorrow of the qualifying for the entire field, and also the top qualifying, the shootout for the fastest class cars,
which begins at 5:30 tomorrow evening, so we'll be on just before that, and with the 2 segments of top qualifying, that will take us through to probably beyond 7:15, which is the time that it's scheduled to finish. But there's always the 1 or 2 that we wait for, of course. They're waved off in order, and sufficient time needs to be given between qualifying 1, top qualifying 1 and top qualifying 2, as we welcome in the 5 additional cars to join those that they know are already in. It's quite a standard looking BMW, which is parked to driver's right at Stefan Belov S. Maybe 2 digits, but it's a bit too dark, and the car not quite at the desired angle for me to identify that silver and very standard looking BMW. In the meantime, as Peter Mackay tries to identify it, Maxi Goertz gave a brief interview to the press after he clambered out the number 4 Bilstein Mercedes. His quote: "The first few laps were under normal conditions, but there were 2 very long full course yellow phases due to accidents. The times will certainly be much faster in the next few laps. The car feels good, that's the most important thing, and now we're trying to get into the groove and check out the opponents a bit." So they're obviously looking elsewhere on the timing screen to see how they behave. We don't need to risk anything because we're already qualified, and we're therefore concentrating on setup. And Glickenhaus, the number 706 SCG 004 for Thomas Mutsch, Frank Mayer, Lance David Arnold and Combe Ladigar on the in-lap shortly before a routine pit stop. The power steering on the SCG failed, and the team's now changing that power steering unit, which means a 15-minute break is required. Lance David Arnold, who has taken over from Combe Ladigar, will then start his practice laps. And number 15, Scherer Sport PHX Audi, driven by Swiss driver Ricardo Feller, is now heading out of Hohenrhein and onto the grid hatchings of the main start-finish straight, and is about to complete a lap 9:21.9. Looks like, well, at certain points during these code 60s and yellow flag areas fading in and out, depending on what's been happening, it has been possible to get just about a sub 9-minute lap, but we haven't got anywhere close to the 8:21.4 that the number 72 BMW was able to set much earlier on in the day during qualifying 1.
And that's purely down to incident out on the track giving us slow zones. That slow zone is still there down the hill through the foxhole, isn't it? We've got one.
Oh, it's just lifted.
Is it just lifted? Really?
It's just a yellow flag now at Arenberg. So amazing job there from the track crew to get that all cleared up. We now have a clear racetrack, folks.
For the first
time in an hour and 18 minutes.
Schwalbenschwanz develops a slight slow zone there. We've got one car that hasn't come out this evening. That's the number 88. It's the Subaru Technica International. It's the Subaru WRX. That's currently leading the SP4T class in 40th place overall, and that hasn't posted a time at all this evening.
Waiting for it to rain. Conditions are too easy. They need the 4-wheel drive to let that loose. So now you need to jump. If you're sitting in the pits right now, you want to get out on circuit, because we don't know how brief this clear track could be. Thomas Preining right now is out running down towards Fade and Kreutzmate, that Metzgesfeld. They look quite similar going through, and then he's got double yellows, so it's not entirely clear. I think we might be going back. Well, it was fun while it lasted. Yeah, it was fun while it lasted. Alan Hart.
There's a car facing the wrong way on the exit of Metzgesfeld, so you can understand why it's yellow there. There is an intervention vehicle already on the scene. It always gets me as you're coming out of and there's more intervention vehicles because there's a flatbed. Oh no, that's in fact the Armco truck which left the foxhole and has only got to Metzgersfeld and Kallenhardt and looking for the nearest exit to head off the track, which may well be as far down the hill as Breitscheid. So it's going to take a little while for the HGV to visit that scene. But yes, having got out of the gas, and therefore you're going through the double left-hander at Metzgersfeld much slower than normal, Thomas Preining then accelerates at a sort of random point and then automatically knows where to hit the anchors at Kallenhardt. He might never have braked at that point ever in his life before, but these drivers just seem to know through a sixth sense.
Thomas Preining's a special driver, really, really special driver. You know, a DTM ace. His dad actually was a Grand Prix motorcycle racer. So comes from racing stock, if you like, but really cut his own furrow. He won the DTM Championship in 2023. He won the Carrera Cup Germany Championship in 2018. That is a seriously difficult championship to win. Now, one of the Valkenhorst Astons is off in the barrier. They're all different colours. Quickly look at my notes. It's not the 34. It's not the Pro. It's the 36 car for Valkenhorst Aston Martin. Oh, that's quite a lot of damage.
Well, it's been off the road left and right, and again an indication to me about how much wet weather we've had already, because it is a bog the other side of the red and white curbing, and it's come in to the Armco barrier almost at 90 degrees. Well, that's where it's ended up resting. Direction of travel is behind it. So if you imagine you're sitting in the car, to driver's left is where the cars are coming from, driver's right is where they're heading to, and this is just before Kallenhardt. This may well be the car that Thomas Preining has just passed that was fully facing the wrong way, therefore, and the 36 is now doing something like a 4 or 5 point turn, and is now heading in the right direction.
That is at Kallenhardt. Yep.
I think he got away with that.
Big time.
I couldn't see any damage on that car.
I thought there was a bit on the front, but no.
I think it's the livery. It's got like paint splat on it. That makes it look damaged.
Okay.
I tell you, the key thing from that Aston going off, it's brought a hell of a lot of mud onto the track. I think it's spun the way that we see cars spin here at the Nürburgring, where it kind of goes down one side of the grass verge and then spins across, and it's brought a lot of mud on there. And unless we see a clear up, that part of the track is going to be treacherous, and it's also going to bring the lap time down.
It is. You're going to need a long period of dry weather, which I don't think we're going to get. Where that little stream across the road was at Metzgersfeld.
A lot of traffic to clear that.
True. Yeah, that also.
It's going to be treacherous for a little bit.
So just now showing there's code 60 still there at Kallenhardt, but hopefully that will. That's the next corner after Metzgersfeld, about coming up to halfway around the lap. Once that's all cleared up, they should get back to a full green flag track again. Thomas Preining, it won't be a headline grabbing lap time, but still setting good sectors for that car. And the Grello Manthey car. Beautiful
time to be out on the track there with the sun setting. The drivers out there at the moment need to soak this up, because it really is literally the golden hour of the sky, where the sun is breaking through the clouds, just showing a golden haze, and with the light beginning to drop away ever so quickly, it's not going to be long before we are full dark here and out on that treacherous Nordschleife. Treacherous in the broad daylight, is going to be even more so in the dark hours. So whether or not we're going to see a maximised and optimised lap time, I think that the chances of that are eking away from us, aren't we? And it's not necessarily to do with the light, like I'm implying. It's everything to do with what's happening out on the track. It's been a very eventful session, this, for incidents. The track has been affected massively by that spillage down the foxhole. And even though it's been cleared and given the all clear, it's still going to have an effect on the track surface through that very tricky section, which is it's flat out by pretty much all of our classes, isn't it, down there?
Now, the suggestion is that the Valkenhorst Aston didn't go off on its own necessarily at Kallenhardt. I have to say, as Thomas Preining headed past that scene, coming through Metzgersfeld and getting out of the throttle, it looked to be a much shorter hatchback-type car on his left, Thomas Preining's left, headlights facing him, and that is the 477, or it was the 477 VW Sirocco from MSC Kempenich EV. It runs in the VT2 front-wheel drive class. Christian Koger, Thomas Alpiger, Martin Heydrich and Hendrik Seibel, or Seibel I should say, are the drivers for 477 and the 36 car. Now, whether they, the suggestion is they collided and both can continue driving, but I hadn't spotted that the Valkenhorst Aston was involved, so I wonder whether that car was off on the right-hand side in the bog, as I described it, and then the Sirocco was facing the wrong way. Both may have got away with that, although if they've collided, there may be some bodywork damage, but at least it looks like both can limp back to the pit lane for the teams then to be able to assess what's really wrong with those cars.
As we go into the night and the darkness is descending quickly here at the Nürburgring, the Bilstein Mercedes run by Haupt Racing Team, that's car number 4, they've come up with both a fan-friendly and I have to say commentator-friendly trick where they've used luminous yellow paint. The car is predominantly blue, but it has luminous yellow paint with the Bilstein branding popping out from it to make it much easier to identify in the dark, which of course we have a lot of dark running here in at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So if you are watching trackside or indeed on our coverage, you'll see that yellow stripped car, that's the Bilstein Mercedes.
Heading for
number 4.
Oh yeah, on the Grand Prix Strecke, heading for the Ravenol Curve, Bilstein Curve, and then that flat out Ad Van Bogen, the right hand kink, before you then set the car up for the faster version of the chicane. There's a real hard stop left and right, which we never run as part of this configuration. Instead, there's certainly a braking application, but then you can afford to jump over the curves depending on how early on you are in your stint, I suppose. To make sure that the tyre pressures are up and willing to take that, otherwise you may be regretting those curb hops later on in the stint. Has Preining just pitted? Yes, he has. So he completed that segment by doing another lap. Well, you can't get into the pits during this part of the week, can you? Unless you do the Grand Prix track, because it's all coned off. Those cones will be removed in time for the race.
Much like Dan Harper did earlier, though, he went absolute best in Sector 1 on his in lap, so really pushing all the way in. So Sector 1 is the Grand Prix, the start of the Grand Prix down to the Goodyear Kera.
Do you know why that's important for the driver to come in really hard? You need, if you get the driver to come, in this case, because of the way that this is configured, that you have the driver, you might think, well, I'm just going to ease off and I'm just going to bring it around the Grand Prix track and in, but that's going to let your tyres cool off slightly. So you've got to be all the way into your pit box, absolutely on it, bring the car in so that your tyre engineers have got the optimised and the accurate, I should say, not optimised, the accurate tyre reading from those tyres, and that's where they derive what's best setup.
Yeah, and all these elements have to be thought about. And the last thing you want is someone sort of losing concentration as well, with still the full Grand Prix track to do.
Good point as well. I mean, drivers get into a rhythm, don't they? And as soon as they start backing off, and it's easy to make that mistake because you get out of your rhythm.
I'm going to say it quietly. You can blame me. We have a clear racetrack again. Last time I said that,
didn't last very long.
I'm sorry, we don't. We have.
Well, we have a full green flag racetrack.
We may have full green, but we've got a recovery vehicle that's making its way back to the paddock, and it's on track at the moment.
But we still have a green flag. Both statements are true. That's the Nürburgring Nordschleife. You can go by at full speed. You can't go side by side past an intervention vehicle, but you can go at full racing speed.
It's like a moving yellow flag, isn't it?
It's
a white
one
flag.
of the things you got to adjust to watching and listening and even driving here, particularly driving here at the Nürburgring.
I think I'm right in saying that yellow flags don't pursue an intervention vehicle like that. It's only the white flags, isn't it? If it's an Armco truck, for instance, looking for the nearest gap in the fence.
It's certainly a yellow light. It's got yellow flashing lights all over it. But still, I mean,
you don't have to show to the stewards that you're backing off. As long as you're being warned that there is a slow vehicle on track, you would treat it like a slow race car that had got a problem. Which is, again, what are we doing here, folks?
Well, absolutely. And I remember a few years ago having a conversation with Rob Huff. We were actually on the tunnel on the way back from this event. and he was describing, he said, I've probably got a season's worth of close shaves in one weekend of racing here in N24. And he was, stuck the film under the chin many times, coming over blind brows. There's a recovery truck making its way around, no yellow flags, just as you come over the brow, there's the bright flashing yellow lights from the truck itself. And this is going back to how fit you have to be, how focused you have to be, and how concentrated you have to be. So it's, when you wake a driver up at 5 a.m. and say, all right, mate, wake up, and you're in the car in 20 minutes, you really have to be awake and very well focused and concentrated. At the best of times, even more, 100 times more so, here at the Nürburgring 24 hours. It's a phenomenal challenge.
Rob Huff, fresh from another British Touring Car Championship win last weekend at Snetterton.
Yeah, he's back with
20 years on from his previous one, so he's been away for a little while, but
competing this weekend in a Porsche, but in the classic race, in the Youngtimer race.
Okay.
In an RSR, original RSR. So really excited to see what Rob can do there in that event. Starting to now get a little bit of indicative times at last in this session, the first of which is Maro Engel, car number 130 for Get Speed, Mercedes AMG, an 826 flat. That's still a little bit off what we saw earlier on, an 821.487 for the number 72 BMW RMG car. So that's the best of the day so far, but I think the more that we get, the more green flag running we get, the better. And just as I say that, unfortunately, we have a code 60 at Exmühle, which is just at Breitscheid when they go over the bridge in Adenauer. Code 60 there, and unfortunately, we'll try to find out why. But there goes the all-green track.
Didn't last very long, did it?
It didn't. No.
You
could get lucky. You could get lucky. You could have been on a lap, got by, and then the incident happened just behind you, and then you're okay for another 9 minutes.
That is true.
Or so.
It's true. It's been a very messy session, this one.
Also getting word of the team Advan by HRT Mercedes for Dennis Fetzer, Hubert Haupt, Ralph Aron and Salman Vega. That is driving slowly back towards the start and finish straight, so trying to complete its lap, but it's also had an impact in the Metzgersfeld area, so that's proven to be a bit of a hot spot. Metzgersfeld into Kallenhardt.
It was earlier. Yeah, there's a little strip of water that's coming across as you're coming in that fast left. There's a little strip of water that it refuses to dry up, it seems, and that's caught a lot of people out.
So is that between the two left-handers at Metzgersfeld or before both of them?
Near the second one. Exit of the second one.
So there's the run out of Adenauer Forst, where the foxhole opens up into a bit of a clearing. That's a rare treat there is some runoff, I often say there. It's not gravel. There's a fair bit of grass there, so if you do make a slight error, it's more forgiving than perhaps any other part of the racetrack, Grand Prix Strecke accepted. But then as you power your way out of Adenauer Forst, you've got to be wary of not one but two left-handers at Metzgersfeld, plus now that river as well. And then the incident involving the Valkenhorst Aston, number 36, and the 477 Sirocco, which happened at Kallenhardt itself. Less than 2 hours to go as the silhouette of the Nürburg Castle on the hill just to our right, now with a fabulous bit of red cloud immediately behind it, and it is a red-fronted BMW that is currently fastest, still courtesy of the 821.4 that it posted earlier on in the day. Or that car is now on another lap and has just done a PB through Sector 3 at 104.2. So that's Daniel Harper at the wheel again. It's been a little while since that BMW was in action, so maybe they've chosen to throw the car out now with the track not fully clear, but as near as we've had it for the last hour or so.
When Dan Harper got out the car, we caught a little bit on our FX mic of him chatting away in English to his engineer, Dan Harper, and he said, yeah, feels good, everything's good. It was very positive language about about how the car was feeling of that number 72 RMG BMW. So they're definitely in a good spot. They've been quick regardless of the conditions all day.
Yes. Which is, fabulous to have a car that will adapt and behave, because so often around here, yes, it might be raining, but it's not necessarily racing at all the corners around this track.
Are we seeing any powder being kept dry for qualifying?
Lots of.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're seeing a bit of sandbagging, are we?
I wouldn't use that word personally, but I think there's definitely powder being kept dry. But you could say that means the same thing.
It does in my book. Is there a point of that? I mean, can the organisers step in and adjust the balance of performance at this stage in the weekend, going into tomorrow when it's all important?
I thought the data retrieval was that good these days that they could actually work out that you weren't giving it 100%, and therefore they're not going to make any knee-jerk reactions to say, they need a bit more of this or a little less of that. They kind of know now through throttle traces, through braking application, whether it's all being done in the right places or not. Maybe.
Yeah, you know what, racing drivers at this level, though, you say, all right, not so much around a track this length, but you say, all right, I need 2-minute 14s from you, 2-minute 14.4, and he'll give you 2 minutes 14.4. It might be a 2-minute 14.5, but it'll be 2-minute 14.4. So these guys are very, very clever, very clever.
The 11 car is another one to watch during this lap, because that's lighting up in green. That's the Schnitzelon Racing Mercedes that is second fastest so far. Marcel Markiewicz. 911 still up there, which is the Grello car of Thomas Preining. And that car has been driven by Thomas for quite a few laps now. I'd be interested to know whether this is maybe dummying a stint for the race. It's not quite long enough yet. I mean, what are we talking for a stint length? Because you can get up to 8 laps in an NLS race. It's a slightly longer lap around here, but I don't think long enough to mean that it would be down to 7 laps per stint. It's still 8.
You can get 8. Yeah, we occasionally see a little bit of 7-lap stints and a little bit of playing about with the stint lengths because of the way the minimum pit stop times work in the race. You effectively if you stop. At the race start, if you stop later, so say if you extend your stint from 7 to 8 laps, your minimum pit stop time goes up by 21 seconds. But you get it back all the way at the other end of the race, whereas the later you stop, the shorter your minimum pit stop time is. So you can make your investment early. It's a little bit like doing your homework on the Friday night, so you've got the whole weekend to enjoy, or you cram it all on the Sunday.
Which of those do you think I tended to do?
I think the latter, Johnny.
The cramming.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I didn't bother at all. And winging it didn't seem to provide much success either. Daniel Harper, on the other hand, has done all the homework necessary within his BMW Junior program, and now moving to the 72 crew in BMW M Team RMG. Max Hesse, Charles Vietz, his teammates, the rapid flashing of blinding white light then to one of the Hyundais that needs to be wary that one of the quick cars wants to get through. They also have the blue Lumirank lighting in the windscreen to show you that it's... Now, is that all SP9 cars across the piece? And SPX cars, in fact. So SP9 and SPX have the blue Lumirank coloured number in the windscreen. All the other cars in the field, if you're not in SP9 or SPX, white. But what they've done is, previously you used to have the white Lumirank and then a separate blue light that we used to say it was almost like the police closing in on some of the subcategories, but they've combined the two now to make it even easier to digest and work out. Joe?
Just monitoring this number 72 BMW of Dan Harper. Dan started the session, did 15 minutes, which was 2 laps, would you believe. He then handed over to Charles Vietz, who did about half an hour, just over half an hour. And now Harper in the car, he's done about 14 minutes in the car. We've yet to see Max Hesse, who again, plenty of time, but we're not really seeing any need for any real sort of go at an optimum lap here, are we?
No, certainly not in the SB9 and SBX class, because it's not them that are worrying about that. In the Cup 2, which is kind of the next quickest class, Black Falcon team, they are car number 148. Interesting. That was the car that we saw on our footage here in the Global Broadcast Centre at Schwalbenschwanz being towed along by an intervention vehicle. It still sits in class pole, but hasn't improved on its time from earlier yet, and may not do so in the session, depending on when they get the car back, how much repair it needs, etc. The next best car in Cup 2, which is a class for Porsche 992 Cup cars, is about 4.6 seconds back on the times from earlier. Problem also for the number 24 Lion Speed Porsche in the SB9 class, a spin on the Grand Prix Strecke. If you're going to spin, that's certainly the place to do it. Do it on the Grand Prix Strecke rather than on the Nordschleife.
Plenty of runoff, isn't it? Plenty of runoff, plenty of grass area to turn the car around, as we've just seen the number 24 do just that. I'm just checking on who the driver is in that number 24 at the moment, and it's Antares. Or are we pronouncing that name as Au? A-U. Antares.
Ow. Or ow. Yeah, I tend to kind of jump between the two, really, to cover all bases.
Just did it.
Yeah, very good. And being Chinese, sometimes they like their surname to be said first as well. So, Antares sometimes. We can vary it. Patrick Niederhauser, Patrick Kolb, Indy Doncher are the remaining drivers in number 24, the Lion Speed GP in their Porsche 911 GT3R. Another reason to spin on the Grand Prix track is that you then don't necessarily have to venture out onto the hats and back with scrubbed tyres, because if you suddenly realise there's a heck of a vibration coming from your Porsche, you would really have wished to have turned right at the Hyundai Curva at the end of the lap, and then into pit road instead. Still quite a bit of light elsewhere around the racetrack. That's partly down to the outstanding camera technology these days as well, because from Thomas Preining's vantage point, it did look a lot darker a moment or two ago. He's certainly not relenting in the pace, though, approaching Arenberg through that rapid left-hander at Schwedenkreuz, then needing to muscle the car over to the left-hand side to approach Arenberg with the widest possible angle. Some concerns possibly for the number 15 Audi from Scherer Sport PHX, because it's in the garage with one or two team personnel around, as now it's very, very busy later on in the lap for Joel Eriksson in one of the two Falcon Porsches. This is heading down towards Brunchen, and he had to keep the tightest line possible there to duck underneath a couple of slower cars. I say that very much in inverted commas, because they're still certainly powering on, approaching Eiskerve, Eschbach behind them now, Brunchen, Flatsgarten to come, and then Schwalbenschwanz, I should say, right after the Stefan Beloff S. Are those moments when you're utterly surrounded by traffic and you just have to keep on the straight and narrow, try not to be flustered by it too much, and know that storm will pass eventually.
We could be about to see a very, very fast time from the BMW M Team RMG car of Dan Harper. He's just put 4 purple sectors in a row, 4 absolute best sectors. So that BMW really liking these conditions. Dan driving it beautifully. We mentioned how what we picked up on with the microphone debriefing with his engineer, with the mechanic saying, yeah, car feeling is good, everything's good. Clearly it is, because now he's got a bit of clear air and a clear racetrack, able to lay down some seriously competitive times.
The projection is an 8 minutes 17, Peter. That's what the projection of these optimised sector times are telling us. Whether he can pull that off, if you match all of the optimum sector times throughout the field, it comes to an 8 minutes and 15. However, the human element has got to come into that, as some cars are more suited to other parts of the track than others. 8 minutes 15, I'll be delighted to see that. But at the moment, 3 more sectors to complete for Dan Harper in the BMW M team, RMG. Car number 72 is on target for an 8 minute 17.
Well, let's have a run through the classes, because the top we always talk a lot about the outright leaders, where they're going to set their grid positions tomorrow. But for all of the classes, the 23 classes here at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, 21 of those are setting their grid positions as we speak. So at the moment in Cup 2, your leader is the number 148 Black Falcon machine with a lap time of 8 minutes 33.017. So that is the class for Porsche Cup cars. In SPX, it's the Glickenhaus, driven by Lance David Arnold, just put in its best lap of the day, an 8:33.861 for that beautiful light blue Glickenhaus machine. Then in SP11, a car quite literally in a class of its own, the Dur Motorsport KTM Crossbow GT2, which is by far the fastest car down the straight, a hugely slippy car and fast car too, a lot of power. 8:51.154 is that car's best at the moment. In SP8T, I'm sure will be a big fan favourite car. Your provisional pole sitter at this point in time is car number 150. It's the Bilstein car, the BMW by Black Falcon. This car has some names that will be very familiar to those who peruse the archives of YouTube. Misha Khairudin, Jimmy Broadbent, a very well-known streamer, Super GT, or Steve Brown as he's known, and Manuel Metzger, former winner of this race. They sit on pole in their class at the moment by a good margin. SP4T, it's the Subaru, the big Subaru from Japan that leads the way, 40th overall at the moment. In TCR, not really a surprise, the Works Hyundai Elantra NTCR, Mikel Azcona driving at the moment, car 830. Their best time, a 9:02 flat, is their best of the day so far. In SP10 for GT4 machinery, for Dur Motorsport in their Aston Martin, that car is on pole provisionally at the moment, a 9:02.317. In the alternatively fueled 83 class, the Hoffa Racing by Bonk Motorsport car, 9:02.3, they're on pole right now. In the 82 class, the Four Motors GmbH car sits, that's a Porsche Cup car, 9:03.148 at this moment in time. And in SP, the next class along is Cup 3, and I've gone past the pole, so there it is. SRS Team Sorg Rennsport, they sit in pole on their class with a 9:03.656 at this moment in time, but that could well change a lot over the next hour and 43 minutes. In SP6, it's the Prince family outing, the Hoffa Racing BMW M3, it says here CSL, I've seen it on the entry list as a GTR. I think it's a mismatch of lots of things. 9 minutes and 25 for them. Then in SP3T, it's the Audi TTS MSC Sinsig that leads the way. That's the class the Dacia is in, so at the moment the Dacia has got to conquer that Audi to get up on pole position there. In the highly competitive BMW M240i class for that aforementioned vehicle, your leader there at the moment is the Up to Race car 680. That sits with a 9:43.854. In V6, it's the almost completely standard road car, Porsche 911 Carrera of a 991 vintage, 9 minutes and 46.7 for them. Still scrolling through, in SP7, the Porsche 718 Cayman of Plusline Racing Team leads with a 9:56.174. That's car 80. Then in class V2T Heka, that's for rear-wheel drive V2T cars, car number 500, Adrenaline Motorsport, real stalwart of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, 10 minutes and 2 seconds.9 for them. Then in the VT2 front-wheel drive class, it's the Hyundai i30N, 10 minutes flat, 10 minutes and 8 seconds. In V4 class, car 711 with no team name for that, BMW 325i, 10 minutes 23. Then it's the Adrenaline Motorsport Porsche Cayman in V5, 10 minutes and 24 seconds. Their pull time at the moment. VT3 led by the Kevin Sports and Racing Team, 10 minutes 37 with their BMW 335i. And last two, SP3 is led by the BMW 318 Ti of E36 generation, 11 minutes and 9 seconds. That's a fairly old car now, E36 generation, but still on pole in class. And finally in SP4, no team name, BMW 325 CI, car 152, a 12 minute and 6 second lap time. That is your rundown of not one, not two, but 21 classes trying to get onto their provisional class pole. Of course, SP9, the top class, and SPX, they will set their grid positions tomorrow in top qualifying.
What do you reckon to that first half of this evening session then, P-Mac?
Very, very, I would think frustrating for the teams. For us, it's always interesting to watch, but frustrating for the teams having a lot of interruptions with slow zones, etc. What I'm looking to see is, now that we've got a clear racetrack, yes, it's getting darker, but are we going to see that timing screen light up? Just as I was doing that class update, an 8:17.236 for Dan Harper. That'll do it.
And Peter Snowden joins us for the first time this week. Snowy, who knows this place very well indeed. We've been sitting in our secondary booth, our second studio, if you will, watching this. What have you noticed about this? From my point of view, the work they did over the winter, it has paid dividends, because there's some. I'm thinking of the Vauxhall. Porsche number 5, the race-born Herbert Motorsport car, the fat turbo car heading down to Vauxhall now. I mean, that was always quick. But Dennis Olsen, he's not going to lift all the way down through the Vauxhall, and he's halfway up the other side before he even thinks about it. That's only because there's a car there. They are hauling the mail now, aren't they?
Two things about the Vauxhall, John. It's not as quick as it used to be, would you believe? Talking to David Pittard when he first drove it, he said they're taking the bumps out of it, obviously by resurfacing it. So you've got to get your head around it. You've got a muscle memory of how you drive that. You now drive it quicker, down it. But at the end, there used to be a chamfered curb you could use on the left as an exit. Now they've taken that away. So in actual fact, he said it's quicker all the way down. And he literally said it's resetting your brain. You can drive down it faster, but you can't exit the way you used to. So the net effect is it's actually a slower section than it used to be. He said it just completely messes with your head. And that's from David Pittard, who won this race last year. So he's kind of got some good credibility there.
I would say he knows what he's talking about, definitely. We saw Alan Tardis having a spin in it was the Ravenol curve, wasn't it? He's gone off at Metzgersfeld as well. Wait to find out how damaging that might have been. Bruce Jones joins us as well for the first time this weekend. And as far as you've been watching, you've been doing a quick bit of research, final bits of research. What's caught your eye in the opening of this evening session?
Frustration for a lot of the drivers, the fact they managed to get a couple of laps in at most, some of them only one flying lap, then they had to sit there for an hour. But to me, you suddenly had the drivers release and Dan Harper being popped back in the car. He'd set the initial pace, and then an hour and a half later, got out, nailed it 4.5 seconds quicker than anyone else. Of course, we've watched Dan Harper over the years on the Nordschleife, and he's been mighty, the young Ulsterman. And again, he's delivered in this absolute top-end field, and everyone else is trying to keep up with him. But, you know, it's very important. They've got the qualification done from their point of view. But again, it's just peer pressure. BMW at the front, Dan Harper delivering.
I was going to say exactly the same. You used the word frustrating. I was going to say it was messy and through no fault of anybody. It was just the track's resurfaced. It's new. It's also rained a lot, therefore it's quite green. It needs to rubber in, as we always say. It's dry now, so it's a hugely evolving track in this session for for 3 and a bit hours. But it is frustrating that, and as you said, Dan Harper there, we've watched him in that junior team, which is now disbanded sadly, but they've got one of the drivers with us, so Neil Verhagen's been replaced by Chris Wirtz, is it not, for this session, for this race. But it was...
Charles Wirtz, yeah.
Charles Wirtz, my apologies.
In fairness, to be honest though, Snowy, that's because BMW want Neil to concentrate on the US part of his programme. So that's not to say that he's not any good here, quite the reverse. But there is a race in the States this weekend as well.
We've said that before, haven't we? That they're BMW factory drivers. Those three of them, Neil Verhagen, Dan Harper, and who's the third? Who's the
Max Hess.
Max Hesse. Yeah.
The three of them, and they were a couple of times they put them down into GT4 cars, into an SP10 category, not to get experience, not because they weren't good enough in the GT3 car, but to actually they are developing as drivers. That is their job. The product, which is BMW's product. And it was interesting, they said that they learnt a lot more by being involved in the different classes of cars.
The Dacia's just had a moment, and it hasn't had an off as much as it just ground to a halt. That new turbocharged engine had no fire for a while. It's going for a while with no lights. The headlights have come on, but I didn't see the tail lights.
I was just going to say, not sure the tail lights are on.
A bit worried about that. Dan Harper, whilst we were doing that changeover, if you are just joining us, first person to beat the team's best time of teams that had times to beat. Remember the defending champions here, the defending winners from last year, the Fricatelli 296 Ferrari, had all of their times disqualified from the early session today. They had too much turbo boost on that engine. Same problem for the Aston Martin 177 from memory. And another one of the Astons has been put to the back of its grid for speeding, back of its group, should I say, for speeding through a 60-kilometre zone as well. I think that was a 176 actually. Again, I'm doing that from memory, sorry, as I'm just waiting for the computer to drop back in. We still have just on an hour and 35 minutes of this session to go. Official sunset was about 25 minutes ago, and it's properly dark on quite a lot of the sections of the Grand Prix circuit and, of course, the North Loop, the Nordschleife. There's not a lot of extra lighting around here. On the Grand Prix circuit, yes, a little bit because of the fact there's people on the infield, Peter, but out in the woods, it's properly dark.
Yeah, but I've got no sympathy. From the days when I did this, they've got proper light. No, we had wet candles. Sorry, they've got proper.
Didn't you just wear a miner's helmet with a with a little lamp on your head?
I'd hoped you'd never seen that. But no, it hasn't bothered Charles Wirtz, by the way. No. He's just dropped to a little bit, same second, but a little bit quicker than Dan Harper. Just absorb that for a minute. A little bit quicker than Dan Harper in a Works BMW M4.
Well, he's been driving that car all year, Bruce, with Team WRT. He ran Valentino Rossi very close a couple of weekends ago. I thought Rossi actually, that last stint of that sprint race was absolutely superb from Rossi. He's really going on. Charles Wirtz has got quite a bit of experience now. He's no longer the kid.
No longer the kid who stood at the back of the garage. He'd watched a previous kid who stood at the back of the garage, Dries Van Tor, step up and start starring. And of course, it's his father's team. And then he stood up. First time I met him was the FIA Motorsport Games in Bahrain. And this tall, skinny figure steps up. I thought, well, yeah, you're playing with the big... Oh, you've put it right at the front of the grid. Oh, OK. Very well done. Here, though, you were just talking about the level of darkness and the degree of darkness. A lot of the shots, as we look around the outside of the circuit, you have a car, and then it's always lit by other people's lights, and the lights from the fans in various pockets around the circuit. But when the Dacia Logan suddenly went around and just pulled to the side of the circuit, you thought, oh yeah, have we got tinted windows in the commentary box? You know, we have suddenly gone from a vestige of light to practically none. The only light is now the headlights, and it really has gone very quickly. And bear in mind, about midday here, and in fact slightly earlier, it was tipping with rain, and then even early, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it was still drizzling, but we're properly dark. One thing that's quite good is the Dacia Logan has made it back.
It has made it back to the pits, and that car completely reshelled after the huge accident that they had here last year. They've changed the engine, so it is now a turbocharged engine, so it's gone up to SP8T, so it's in a class that it's never going to be competitive in. This is not about anything else than getting that car to the finish. I understand the controversy, and there was a lot of... Oh, hang on. Even I know that Joel Eriksson there wasn't quite on the right line as he was going into the Grand Prix circuit, but he's back on track now in the Falcon Motorsport number 44. I understand the controversy that car causes round here. I don't really think it deserves the vitriol that we saw last year. It's a throwback to when I first came here to do this commentary in 2007, and we still had the under 1600cc cars then.
Oh, wind it back another decade ahead of that, and the sheer number of the tiddlers, if we can call them that, and to me, just the closing speed was the hideous thing. But you raced here, of course. What was the first year you raced here? In 24?
18. No, I can't remember exactly what it was. It's
the man with the white red flag walking in front of you, isn't it, Peter?
Well, I was just looking at Charles Wirtz there, and he wasn't born when I first raced here, so let's just say that it's over 25 years
So what were you racing around here, Peter? What were you in the top class?
First one was Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 6 or 7.
So that was an all-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive, rally art prepared car, basically. They did it was a rally art tarmac stage rally car.
And what was the top class then? What were you racing? That would have been a top class car then.
GT1s.
Right, exactly.
Exactly, GT1s in those days. Yeah, big stuff.
Aston Martin with the four-way flashes out on the circuit, and that's... well, lights are still on. It's just beyond the Decra Bridge, and the lights are still on, the four-way flashes are still on, but I don't think it's got any forward motion. It is one of the GT4 cars, the number 176 in SP8T. You see, that's the Dacia Logan class. That's what they're racing.
You know, when you were just saying that, I was just double-checking what was it also an SP8T, and I lighted on those cars because at the same time I was just double-checking if it was 177 or 176 that got the turbo penalty, and it was the 176, which is shared by Arne Klaas and Erik Ullström from Sweden. Renzo Rocco, he's short for Rocco di Torrepadula, of course, and Jörg Fiban.
Just finish on the Dacia Logan, and you've mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned closing speed, and having experienced this. My view, for what it's worth, on the Dacia Logan is it's a fan favourite. You're absolutely right, John. I don't think it deserved the vitriol it had last year. I'm glad everybody survived that.
Oh yeah,
escape.
absolutely.
That's the most important thing. The only thing I would say is I think it's got a place here. It's got a lot of fan base. It's great in an NLS 4-hour race, which is daylight. Add it into a 24-hour with darkness and closing speeds. I think it's unfair to the crew in that car to have the speed differentials you've got, which we witnessed last year. It's almost like Monaco Grand Prix. It's not the circuit's fault, the cars are too big. Yeah. It's like, is darkness the place for that car? And it just, I mean, on the other side of that, all hero to them for actually going out and doing it. But maybe it's quicker this year than it was last year with this change of engine.
But also, the problem is everything's getting quicker. So you're talking about the GT1 cars in the days that you were there. So they would come round past you pretty quickly, and you weren't hanging about. The slowest cars were probably the three-cylinder Daihatsu Charades and the Suzuki Swifts and things like that. I remember those cars still being here.
And the VW Transporter was in the race.
Yes, I do remember that one time.
The first time I came across that, I honestly thought it was an intervention vehicle, then realised it was actually liveried and got a number on it. It was like, why is there a Transporter on the track?
And there were Renault Clios and Ford Fiestas. in number.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely, plethora of them.
The spread in those days. But what we've got now at the front of the field in these SP9 GT3 cars are every bit as quick, if not quicker, Peter.
100%.
Than the GT1 cars were. And they are very sophisticated
that's
racing
progress.
cars.
That's progress, exactly. 20 years, let's call it 20 years for an easy number. 20 plus years on, GT3 cars now are as quick.
What were you lapping sparring in the GT1 when you were running the, let's say, the Lister or something like that?
The Lister, our fastest lap was scary. This actually that's off the top of my head, a 2:16.4.
Right.
In a storm, but that was 2002, 3 and 4.
Right. And what were you lapping around? What was your
Race
fastest
pace
lap around
3:25.
here? Then were you doing sub 10 minutes just?
Just, it was, it was just. Yeah, I think it was about a 9:30, I think.
Right.
To my head. So
that was hauling in those days.
But of course, there's also a difference in technology. That we've got better lights now.
Oh yeah.
But you've now got paddle shift sequential gearboxes that are super reliable.
Yes.
You just pull the button and go up and down and don't think about it.
Yeah.
We had H pattern gearboxes.
Yeah.
And then sequential on the list on the GT1s.
No ABS.
No ABS. No traction control. We did have electric power steering when it felt like it. It didn't used to work on a day that ended with a Y in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get my gist. And it was, and that's one of the biggest things that's happened in that 20 years of progress technology is reliability.
Oh,
because what that means from a driver point of view and a crew running the car and strategizing as well is they don't have to worry about that anymore. They put that to one side. The car is usually reliable.
Even at GT3.
I'm going to regret that now.
Actually, particularly at GT3 level. We're going to have GT3 at Le Mans for the first time in the big race, Le Mans GT3 cars. So very close in specification to what we're seeing here. These cars at the front of the field, if you're watching this for the first time, listening to this for the first time on RS1 and our syndicated World Feed TV here, and we are live at, what time is it now? 4 minutes past 10, Central European summertime. These cars now, Bruce, when we, you've been going to Le Mans longer than me, but I go back to 89, and a 2 or 3 or 4 lap gap between cars at Le Mans at the end of the race was seen as a pretty close event, to be honest. And it was, let's get through to, never mind the morning, let's get through to 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock and have a 4-hour race and see what we've got left. Nowadays, it's flat out all the way through, even with the GT cars.
Yeah, and just the sheer level of reliability, they can just attack. So you can't possibly afford to cruise overnight. But even when you look back over history, some of the great Group C races in the great Group C era, you look at it and, Derek Bell, he won it by four laps. Yet in the early stages of that race, it could have been an absolute humdinger till midnight, even till dawn. But then the fall away in the last 6 hours, but you forget.
Yeah. Bit of change for second place. Marco Wittmann has put the Rover Racing BMW number 98 into second with an 8:21.419. The Van der Linde, Marco Mappelli, Jordan Pepper, Huracan. This is the number 27 car, the Red Bull team Abt machine. What a stunning livery and car that is. They've got a sensor on the rear of the car. Don't have any more info than that, but that is being replaced. About a 10-minute fix we're hearing from the team down there. At RSL_studio, hashtag RSL_N24. Good evening, good morning, whatever it is with you on this Thursday as we are here. Big day tomorrow with 2 shootout sessions for the SP9s and SPX cars. A dozen cars already qualified into the final, the pole shootout, if you will. The rest of them are going for just 5 places. So what, 14, 15 cars going for just 5 places tomorrow? We'll have that for you live. And while we're talking about coverage, all of the other 24, the ADAC RAVENOL 24-hour sessions are live and free. With no blocks or breaks on the audio ever. The race, there are a couple of places where there's different syndications, which means you'll still get our coverage, but you won't be able to do the link at radiolemans.com or on YouTube. However, we are going to give you a little Billy bonus on Saturday morning. It does mean an early start for Peter Mackay and Bruce Jones, but frankly, we pretty much had to hold them back from this. They would camp in the studio overnight because the full young timer race is going to be covered on the World Feed TV with English language for the first time. And you two are buzzing about this, genuinely are.
You know, I wouldn't normally welcome with open arms a 3-hour race before a 24-hour race. But when I started, actually, PMAC sent through the entry list, and I was quite disappointed. Then he realised he'd sent through one from the previous weekend.
Yeah.
Then he sent through the correct one. I press print, and then you suddenly see it's going printing what? Oh, one of 27 pages. The entry is enormous. So we went down to the paddock as they were just starting to leave the paddock to go out on the track. They had a 2-hour qualifying session tonight, and the cars just kept coming and coming, and you thought, it's a Lada. And you go, oh, doesn't that BMW 2002 just look the business? Then you had a Lancer Beta Monte Carlo, etc., etc. And Opel Cadets and Ford Escorts, but a Porsche 928 and so on and so forth. It's a really eclectic mix. And one VW Golf looked as though they literally had stuck a number on the door.
Yeah.
And precious little else. But it's a broad church, which is what I love.
Audi 50 Cup cars.
One was on the list.
Yeah. Is it here?
I didn't see it, but then again, I didn't get to see the first car actually go out to the circuit. There's a little yellow Renault 12, cars you never thought you'd see in a racing circuit unless it got on there by mistake. But why not?
Peter was talking about the Renault 12 all the way down as we were driving down in the Genesis GV70.
He needs to get out more. And
incredibly, as we pull into the supermarket to get a few comestibles for the chalet, there's an off-white Renault 12, and even as we're pulling off, I said, that's not just a Renault 12, look at the wheels, that's a Renault 12 TS. And Bradley and Matt were like, oh, you French car ADAC kind of. I said, you've done nothing till you've had to change your clutch in one of those, because it's a north-south engine with front-wheel drive. Peter?
Bruce, word of warning, don't get him on Citroen DS's.
Oh, I don't. I'd have a DS as a daily.
Every end of it.
Small engine French cars is I think, could be my specialist subject.
Panhards. I used to love those little French camping car holidays.
It's a bit
before your time.
A bit before my time. Peter, go ahead.
You mentioned the Dacia being in the same class as the Aston that was parked.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's SP3 tier, remember? It's
sorry.
2 litre.
Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Against an Aston.
No, indeed. Yeah. SP3.
Turbo. It's got a turbo now, but it's still up to 2 litre.
Bjorn Griezmann is out on the Nordschleife at the moment in the Toyota GR Supra. This is the GT4 Evo. This is one of the alternatively fueled cars, the GT7 A-Fuel Team Griezmann cars. I'm not sure the Super GT4 has taken off as well as Toyota Gazoo Racing would have liked in terms of customer cars. We've had a few people having dalliances with them in, for example, the Michelin Pilot Challenge in the US, and in fact has won a race. Won at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park last year, genuinely on pace.
Which team was that? Was that Smoog Racing? Because they were some of the forerunners.
Yeah, they were. I don't think it was them, though.
But
where's Adam Bonaneda?
Okay, but the Supra GT4, ever since its launch, any circuit I watch it on, it looks fantastic. It looks so well sorted and balanced. But hey, I'm not running a team. No. I don't know.
The road car, of course, is a joint co-production, if you will, with BMW. So there's various bits of BMW and Toyota that's melded together in that car. Effectively, the Z4 is the convertible version of this car, which BMW have the exclusivity on the open top version. Gazoo Racing have turned this into a pretty decent racing car. I think it was Saito Racing that won. That just came into my head there. That could have been something else. At RSL_studio, hashtag RSL_N24, please. Remind me of that, because I haven't quite loaded the chip for all the IMSA stuff this weekend. And anyway, it's WeatherTech rather than Michelin Pilot, which is next weekend, of course. Michelin Pilot with their 4-hour race next weekend. They are headlining their return to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. We've got the first round of the new Mustang Dark Horse Challenge, as well as Mazdas and Porsches actually are the same weekend, although supporting the Grand Prix, and it happens to be Le Mans Test weekend as well next weekend. So another bumper weekend for you if you're an endurance racing fan. The next few weeks are absolutely incredible. Here we are this weekend with a 100-minute race on the streets of Detroit for the pro classes of WeatherTech, and here at the ADAC RAVENOL 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Next weekend, Le Mans Test and Mid-Ohio and Porsches at Canadian Grand Prix. The weekend after that, we're at Watkins Glen, and the weekend after that, it's the 100th anniversary of the CrowdStrike 24 hours of Spa.
Some of these top drivers now are so busy. Take someone right at the zenith in GT3 racing, Maro Engel.
Yeah.
Let's give his little programme working backwards. Last weekend he was competing in the DTM at the Lausitzring. The weekend before, GT World Challenge Sprint at Misano. Weekend before that, GTWC, but Asia at Buriram. And the weekend before, GTWC Sprint at Brands Hatch. And I haven't gone back, but that's just 4 weekends. This weekend, I haven't checked what he's doing next weekend, but it's just, they live their lives on planes now.
Is there a DTM race this weekend as well? No, that was last weekend.
It was the last weekend.
Yeah.
And of course, DTM cars now are GT3 cars, so it's just more intel. It's not even a different category, is it? There's lots and lots and lots of seat time. Driver's dream.
Still miss saloon cars in the German touring car.
I have to say, I miss the fire-breathing ITR cars, those silhouette cars, all-wheel drive, modular. Oh my goodness, those things were incredible.
But in one of the support races here, we've got the sort of 25-year-old vintage DTM cars, and they still tick my box.
There's an Astra V8 that's here, of the same type that won this race in period, coming straight out of DTM. I was fortunate enough at those days, just after that time, to be at RML at the turn of the century.
Stop it.
I know. And RML were commissioned to do the concept car for Opel OPC. Volker Strycek was here in a Cupra this weekend, which doesn't sit quite right with me. That I'm going to have a word with Volker when I see him. And we turned that concept car around in 6 weeks in RML, and that was, I think that was the Calibra coupe.
Well, don't quite go into the teddy bears picnic if you go into the woods today, but if you're in the UK and go down to Mercedes-Benz World at the moment, down at Weybridge, by Brooklands racetrack.
Still never been there.
Centre front in the foyer at the moment, they've got Klaus Ludwig's 190E DTM car from 1993.
Yeah, but this is where
you walk up to it, and for those that all know, look at the front of it, and there's so much camber on it. I thought it was a TVR Tuscan to start with. It's like 7-8 degrees of camber. Then you look inside, look at the driver position. This is the point I was trying to make. They're GT3 cars now. Look at that era. It is 30 years ago, but it's a racing car.
Yeah.
And I had such a close look at it. I thought, well, is it a body silhouette popped on it? No, it's got floor pans and cross members, and it is the really have taken a 190 off the production line, and there's a lot of work gone into it. But it's an absolute piece of art.
That was the Cosworth engine car, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, but you know what? The road version of that was absolutely mint. And I sort of expected that sort of performance from BMW with the M3, but that 230E was just so sorted from the moment it came out of the box, and it's still one of my favourite racing cars. I saw a few just nosing out of tents in the paddock. These things excite me, John. It's sad, really, but makes me happy.
There's something about taking an ordinary kids drawing 3-box saloon car,
totally,
but making it into a racing car. There's something about the wolf in sheep's clothing. I love that. That's why I love high performance estate cars, because it just throws a curveball in. It's like, it shouldn't do this. Oh, but it does. Yeah, take your Audi RSs and the like.
Sim Racing Bar Stewart has tweeted in #RSL_N24. He said, I'm tuned in, watching and listening. Hello, SRBS. And says that Dacia it's not a big car, but they had to really squeeze that in. How does it work down in the garages? The minimum amount of cars in the garages this weekend is 3. The maximum is 5 that I've seen up and down the pit lane. Now, years ago, there used to be up to 8 in a garage, and there was one petrol pump between 2 pits. So it's actually a little better than it used to be, and the petrol pumps now have been replaced, so there's 2 pistol grips, one on either side. So that's hugely different. How does it work, sim racing, Bar Stewart? It works by good old-fashioned talking to the people in your pits. You might never have met them before you got here, but Bruce, there's got to be détente, there's got to be some conversation, or at least some hand signals if you don't all speak the same language.
What I'd like to know, and I'm fairly sure we went in the garage, did it have 5 or 6 cars? Anyhow, 2 by 2 by 1 or 2 at the back, but how do they even allocate who's got the 2 slots at the front? Is it first come, first serve? Sorry, you're last. You come in from the paddock, you're at the back. But going back to when you think there might have been 8 cars in the garage, there is an element. The cars were quite a lot smaller. Then. We forget the sort of creep of the size of cars. And having to be polite, even as we went down, we went to look at the VW Beetle, the new Beetle, as they call it, from 2015, the RSS. And we had to just wait until mechanics had finished what they could to wend our way from the back of the garage, the paddock side, to the front to see them. So, but cooperation, you know, imagine the small hours in the morning, and you know the sort of law of sod, in that all the other garages will be empty, but your garage, which you're showing, has got 3 other of your competitors all in at the same time.
But that will also encourage camaraderie. Because you'll have to work together around the garage. Therefore, you will help each other out, and that's one of the things I love about this type of racing.
There have been a number of very good friendships and business deals done by this. The Aston Martin Signet would never have happened if Aston Martin and Akio Toyota hadn't been sharing the same garage, and the LFA was there, and there was a chat between the 2 CEOs, and Aston needed to get their CO2 levels down, and the concept, literally at this racetrack, the concept for the Aston Martin Signet, one of the smallest runs of Astons ever, actually, for the smallest car, was born. And that's happened in, you know, people garage with somebody one year, ends up driving with them the next, because they've made friends. It comes down, I talked to David King about this years ago when he was still at Aston Martin, and he said there's a sort of gentleman's agreement. Is that one of the Rover Racing cars?
Rover Racing BMW is facing the wrong way.
Right. There has just been an improvement. That has just
or is
been an improvement.
It could be Raffaele Marcello, who's just gone second fastest. Oh, no, the car is second fastest, he's just taken it over, but the 98...
Both of them have just recently done their best laps. It's Augusto Farfus was in the 99 and Raffaele Marcello in the 98. I'll finish off the story. David King said, look, there's an unwritten rule. In the days when there was only 1 pump between 2 garages, potentially, 10, 12, 14 cars, the better off in class got the chance to use the pump first. So you might have been 25th, but 5th in class. Somebody was 31st, but leading their class. Then you go, when are you coming in?
There's an etiquette.
There is an etiquette, and it's the same for moving around in the garage. But you'd often see also drivers from teams that are sharing, mechanics from teams that are sharing, will sometimes pitch in and help if there's a car that comes in that's particularly damaged. It's brilliant to watch.
The Rover Racing BMW that's off, the Marcello Raffaele number 98 car, the same spot is also RPM Racing's Porsche is off the same 107 at Wipperman, actually.
Right.
It's off just past Wipperman, so maybe the 2 have had a little coming together. Just remind me, you mentioned Aston Martin Signet. Remind me when we've done this, John, to come back to the ultimate evolution of the Aston Martin Signet.
Somebody dropped a V8 in the middle of it.
If you know of a chap called Gleb Stefanov, who races a Vulcan, got a Vulcan to roadwork race spec, he did have exactly that. He took his Signet back to the factory and said, I don't want a Toyota IQ with an Aston Martin badge on. I want a Toyota IQ body with an Aston Martin badge and Aston Martin running gear. And they just went, okay, sorry. Lots of head scratching. I think something in the order of, there's a check signed, you fill it in. That sort of deal was sort of okay.
So it has a V8 mounted behind the engine.
It's a 4.7 in it. It's a full Vantage spec. It has the shortest prop shaft ever. It is basically 2 UJs connected. There's a little bit of steel in between. And if you go on to various platforms, you know what I mean, on the internet, you can find, and you'll find an Aston driving specialist, David Hornsey, driving it up to festival speed up the Goodwood Hill. And it's he said it was the most ridiculously overpowered kart he'd ever driven in his life.
Yeah.
And keeping it in a straight line was impossible.
What's really funny...
I love the idea.
What's really funny about that is when that car came out, I suggested to David King, and it would have been Uli Betts who was still the CEO, for an April Fool, that they actually put that out with a mid-mountain V8.
It exists. I've seen it.
The most interesting concept that I'd been around that happened was when RML again mounted a twin cam Super 2000 touring car engine transversely into the back of a Nissan Micra. It subsequently became a V6 from a 370 because it was slightly less temperamental,
of course it did,
to run. And on the occasion of that car first being fired up, it was run out by our test driver, and at that time also at RML effectively the works manager, the factory manager, who was none other than one D. Leslie Esquire, David Leslie, God rest his soul, much missed David as ever, particularly coming around to Le Mans, and I was the ballast, sitting in the passenger seat with a set of cans, dead cans on, because it was loud. And on went a set of trade plates, and off we went round the trading estate. Brilliant.
May I just draw your attention to a certain car on the track at the Nordschleife at the moment. It's a green and yellow Porsche. Mm-hmm. Number 911 on the door.
Yeah.
With a certain Frenchman at the wheel called Kevin Estre.
Yep. He's a neighbour of ours where we're staying this week. He's got his family just down the road.
I bet he gets there quicker than we do.
Well, I bet he does.
And he'll use the grass as well.
Fourth at the moment for the Manthey EMA Grello Porsche. This from Freddie Jenner. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the first race since 1970, i.e. since the first N24, that we've not had an Opel on the grid? If that's true, that's a great start. Okay, the Manda's not here, but we've often had a Cadet or an Astra somewhere, a GTE of some description. I think, Freddie, you might be right on that. At RSL_studio, hashtag RSL_N24. If you've found an Opel, and it has to be an Opel, it can't be badged a Vauxhall or anything else. If you found an Opel on the entry list, let us know. Otherwise, this is the first one since the opener.
Since the opener, 1970. But in that first grid, you can be sure, I can go and check if you want, but I shan't, how many Fords would have been on the grid?
Yeah.
How many Opels?
Yeah.
And VWs? That would have been...
Yeah, the majority of the grid.
Yeah, more than half of the grid. And things are changing. Ford is now really dipping its toe more than properly back in the water. I'm sure we'll have some Mustang GT3s here, in 12 months' time. But the more the merrier, frankly, the more manufacturers. But yeah, times do change. But Opel sort of hung on for a whole lot longer in this event. So it was Nicholas Jonsson at the wheel of the RPM Racing Porsche, the Cup 2 class car that seems to have had its moment out with Raffaele Marcello's Row Racing number 98 BMW. The cars, Peter, did appear to be facing in opposite directions while sitting against the barriers, and I think that was Marcello's outlap.
I think it was,
because the previous sector, this is at 9:10, so that is most unusual. And by the there has just, my timing screen has changed. It is Kevin Estre. I was about to say, the number 911 Grello Manthey Porsche's got Ayhan Şanküven, the very, very talented Turkish driver at the wheel, but it's suddenly reset itself, and it's Kevin, and he's on a charge.
It was the number 99 Rover BMW, so that was Augusto Farfus who'd taken that car out. That was the accident was at Wipperman, and it's been parked on the approach to Brünchen. So let's see how quickly that car is brought back. Outside assistance here, not only is it not terminal in terms of your chances in the race, it's actually it's encouraged that you will be brought back to the pits if the car can be brought back to the pits. If you can get on a flatbed or it can be towed back, it'll be brought back and you can get it back into the race. This is a slightly different way of racing. Well, Augusto Farfus is in the pit lane.
No, I think the 99 is out on the track doing the business in the way it ought to. That's fifth fastest Sheldon van der Linde at the wheel. Marcello has been listed as actually it's now listed as though he's running again.
Well, maybe that car has...
I think there's been a bit of a timing screen adjustment, but I'm fairly sure it's the 98 that's sitting at the side of the track. The car that's still second on our timing charts, but still at the top, it's another BMW. It's BMW M-Team RMG. Max Hess at the wheel at the moment, but the driver who set that time was Dan Harper. Can people beat it?
Dave Alcock talking about ITR and DTM, particularly that Mercedes 190 and the Cosworth engine car. He says, you're talking my language. Yes, they were great days, weren't we? Let's have a quick look at the cars that are in provisional pole position for their classes. Remember, out of the 23 classes, 21 of them will be setting their grid positions in this session and the final run tomorrow morning. It's the number 148 in 20th position, the Black Falcon, number 148 that is on provisional pole for Cup 2. The SP11 is Dur Motorsport. That's the KTM Crossbow, the number 55. SP8T is the 150 Black Falcon in 41st position. The Hyundai Elantra, the Manuel Lauck and Mark Besseng car among the drivers there. The number 830 leads TCR in a very creditable 42nd position. The SP4T, STI, the Subaru Technica International, the WRX, the number 88. That car is leading its class in 44th position. Schmickler Performance powered by Ravenol, the 165 is the SP10 leader, effectively GT4 leader. AT3 Alternative Fuels, the Hoffer Racing by Bonk Motorsport 888, the 4 Motors GmbH BMW number 320 leads AT2. Cup 3 is SRS Team Zorg Rennsport in their very Porsche number 959. They're in 50th position. Hoffer Racing's SP6 number 207 is leading SP6 in 74th position. 77th is the leader and provisional pole sitter in SP3T. Now that is the Dacia Logan's class, and that is the 311, the MSC Zinzig EV ADAC machine. The M240i class up to race, still leading that as they were earlier on. 680 is the car there in 80th position. V6, the 416 car. We have our timing screen doesn't show us what that car is, so I'm going to go up to paper here.
It's a Porsche Carrera of the 911 variety.
Oh right, and that's all it says. There's no team name on that. It's 3 German drivers and Jan Munhauen from Luxembourg, John Lee Schattenborny, Andreas Schatfilzi and Sebastian Ringe from various parts of Germany. So, well done then. I'll remember that then. Plus Line Racing Team, SP7, their number 80 cars in 85th position and is on provisional pole there. The VT2 separated by 4 positions in the general classification. The Rio Drive VT2 is the Adrenaline Motorsport Team Manhattan Wheels, the number 50. Manhattan, René de Boer, happy birthday this week, René. And René de Boer informed me earlier, Manhattan is a bit of a nickname for Frankfurt am Main because they've got, relatively speaking, quite a lot of tall buildings there, which I thought is fantastic. And they are leading the front-wheel drive class in VT2, the rear-wheel drive class rather. The front-wheel drive class in VT2 is the 486, and again we revert to paper for this. That's the Kevin Sports and Racing. Why is that not on the timing screen then? That's even interesting. Kevin Sports and Racing, who've got about half a dozen cars here. That's a Renault Megane for a Polish squad. Daniel Sawada leading that squad of drivers. 444 is the Adrenaline Motorsport, another team, Manhattan Wheels, 444 car, V5 in 103rd position. Number 711, is the leader in V4, and that is a BMW 325i. 3 German drivers, including Tim Lucas Müller and Henning Hausmeier and Desiree Müller as well. Rather stalwarts, actually, of this race. So they're leading their class in 104th position. Another Kevin Sports and Racing car is leading in 103rd position in VT3, and that's the 599. So let me just have a quick look and see what that is. I think that's another BMW when I wandered down the pits yesterday. That is, again, a BMW 335i. And the last 2 classes, SP3 is the 275 and 285, of course, BBC Radio 1, as it used to be. 275 is a BMW 318 Ti of the E36 variety, all German crew. And last but by no means least, in 127th, SP4, which is the 152 car, and that is a BMW 325 Ci coupe version. Again, all German crew, but leading their class. So there's the class leaders.
Well done. It takes quite a while, and just the sheer variety of cars you're going through in teams, and some teams take forever to decide on a name. But while you're doing that, I was just checking on the progress of last year's winning car, the Fricadelli Racing Ferrari 296. A while ago I said it's moved up from 54th to 52nd. This is the car that had its times taken away for excess turbo boost. And good news, Ferrari fans, it is moving up the order, but it's still some distance from the top. In 19th place, best lap is an 8-minute 30.3 second lap, and bear in mind the fastest lap overall is 8:17.2, so some way to go. But Felipe Fernandez-Laza, the only driver who was in that winning crew last year who's still there this year, is the driver at the wheel. And I think it's fairly safe to say Felipe Fernandez does know this circuit rather well, day or night. But it's funny, you know, they were really quick this morning. They had the time taken away, very, very quick in a straight line by all accounts, John. But they seem to be on the back foot, and I guess in this session with that, you know, 1 or 2 flying laps and then that whole hour with slow zones, they just haven't had the chance to settle down, but at least now they are. But still the fastest cars at the moment out on track are lapping very good, about 10 seconds faster than them. But actually at the moment it's a lot of cars now coming into the pits. We've got just under an hour remaining in this 3-hour session, and I think some teams are they've worked through what they're going to be doing.
A couple of cars that are making their public debuts here this weekend. There's a new Mini, Bulldog Racing, with the brand new John Cooper Works version of the new shaped Mini, the latest evolution of the BMW Mini. I always feel I should shout Mini because it's in capital letters for BMW. Mini! Maxi Mini. Have you seen how big a Mini Countryman is now, by the way? If I had one of them, I'd have to have an Austin Maxi badge on it. I really would.
The 2 things there, you know why it's Mini in capitals, don't you?
Because?
To differentiate from the original Mini, the classic Mini. And you know why it's so big, the Countryman?
Because?
The floor pan's an BMW X3.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah. And also the other car that's brand new is the new Mark 8 now. Can you believe this? A Mark 8 VW Golf, the new TCR version of that car. And I said TCR, that is a trim level as well. One of Joe and I's friends from the northeast, Chris Madison, who I'm sure will be tuned in at the moment, he's a big Golf fan. He's got the last version of the TCR edition of the Golf. Very excited that was here this weekend, and that's making its debut. Not the first time this has happened, Bruce. We've seen manufacturers who are normally very secretive about their new cars. I think the new Scirocco a few years ago came out here and raced, and there's been 1 or 2 others down through the years as well.
Yeah, they wait until it's foggy in the small hours of the morning, get 4 hours of running, and then when it's daylight, they tuck it away again. But no, I mean, so many manufacturers, if you're not aware of the value of the Nürburgring Nordschleife for motor manufacturers sorting their cars and upping their performance, they do come testing here a lot. And why not? If you've had the testing, why not go racing? And you never know, whatever performance level your car is, going to be someone up and down the grid that quite fancies a go in a similar one. Let's
take some comments from drivers who've recently been in cars. Daniel Kylevitz from the number 1, added a bit of a name there. Sorry, Daniel. That is the Frickadelli Ferrari. He says we drivers are currently doing our laps at night so we can get used to conditions. I drove 3 laps as he has to. Everything's okay. We want to see what we can do with the new BOP classification. Track is very dirty in places. That's not easy in the dark, and the wet track at Metzgersfeld area just won't go away either. That was the source of quite a few incidents earlier on. Glickenhaus work going on to a front body section for the blue Glickenhaus. Actually, it looks like, I can't decide whether they're taking bits off or putting bits on that, robbing for something else. And very quickly, we mentioned Charles Weerts earlier on being drafted into the BMW number 72 with Max Hesse and Daniel Harper. Charles said, Dan's set the fastest time, the car's good. The team in BMW have done a good job. I think the times are not relevant at the moment because of the traffic and the slow zones, but it is a good start for us. We're going in the right direction. The atmosphere is magical. I've never experienced anything like this before, and you won't get it anywhere else. All the grills, the barbecues, the lights. The darkness, however, does make the track even more challenging. Peter?
A little bit of insight, hopefully not specutainment, but a little bit of insight. Philip Lazar earlier was seen holding his phone flat, like it was a car, talking to the engineer, but he was holding the front and tipping the back up like this, like bouncing, as if he was describing the back of the car.
Bouncing around.
Go back to last year, and had quite a lot of intel from the inside of that team with David Pittard, and they were saying that whilst the car had phenomenal pace at night, and that's what gave them the advantage to win the race, by halfway through the race, as in through the night before dawn, the dampers, especially the rear dampers, were shot.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That was not the term he used. That's what I'm going to say on the broadcast. Okay. But we get the nuance. Yes. I just wonder if it's still an issue or not, or just wonder. I'm going to go into the garage tomorrow, and then I'll be shot as well. Yeah. There you go for speculating. But it was just interesting watching it. And he was just very graphic.
I was talking to Ferdinando Cosolino at Ferrari on Wednesday last week, so this time last week, Wednesday and Thursday, at Fiorano, and talking about this car. And actually we've got an interview that will play in on Saturday, and they basically said for the last 6 hours of the race they'd lost control of the dampers on that car, and that has led them to make some changes to the GT3 296. Obviously they were delighted that they won that race. I think that was unexpected because there wasn't any real factory involvement and no factory drivers there. That was Klaus Abel and you know, the knowledge that Frickadelli has had and build up down through the years, in the same way that Olaf Manthey did all those years for Manthey Racing before that became part of Porsche. Nevertheless, Ferrari very happy, and Klaus back this year, but only the one car. There were 3 Ferraris here last year, I remember, only the one car. And I did say, and actually spoke to the big box as well, the big boss as well about this, and you'll hear this closer to Le Mans in some of our extra programs when we're at Le Mans and on 91.2 FM as well around the circuit from test day. You know, I would have thought, Bruce, there would have been a orderly queue around the block at Maranello, you know, sitting right across to El Cavallino restaurant for 296s to bring here, but they're not a cheap car.
There's the most expensive of all the GT3 cars. A lot of them are now out in the Far East. I think they put the bigger checks down. And what we were talking earlier about the burgeoning scene in the Chinese racing scene. Yeah. Which is sort of rather hidden, but they're going out there. But I would have thought there would be a minimum of 2 or 3 more this year. But the thing that still strikes me, Snow, and you came into the garage at the time talking to Pittard, the dying hours of last year's race, he was chewing the ends off his fingers, because he sort of, you know, sometimes the driver wants to tell you in their heart of hearts, they really want to tell you, but they think, no, I can't. But you know, when a driver just gives you a little raised eyebrow and you think, You'll fill that in later, but clearly there's a problem.
It's often what they don't say.
Yeah.
Very true.
I mean, that thing about the Ferrari, though, I think the point on the expense there is it is a little bit punchy on price, but it's not massively so compared to other GT3 cars. The issue with it's the running cost.
Yeah.
And it is stratospheric. And I said last year when you talked to me about that car, you said, I described it as it's an LMP2 car built to GT3.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely.
But that's the problem. It's everything. You can't unbolt one little bit. You've got to do so much to it. It's a piece of art.
But
it's generally thorough.
It effectively has utilised prototype concepts in a GT3 car, and let's not forget that engine architecture. I'm not saying exactly the same, but the engine architecture and the size of the engine,
the block is
exactly the same in the prototype.
It is the 499.
The 499.
The block is the same.
So the 499P, P for prototypo, but the 499 refers to the cubic capacity of each of the 6 cylinders. So that's where that comes from. And again, interesting chat with the guys at Fiorano last week. Tune in when we're doing our build-up to Le Mans. And as I say, we'll have a bit of that. I just realised something about that. Yes, so we'll have that on Saturday during our countdown to Green, because it was meant to go in midweek motorsport on Wednesday, and somehow we didn't have time.
I love the fact you want to spill the beans, but you also want to keep the suspense going and draw people in next week.
That's just very, very, very bizarre. The new Beetle going well. Sebastian Ash, so we're going all right, and it appears the car's doing what we wanted, but we're still tuning it. There's a lot of work ahead of us. We're making good progress. Indy Doncha was talking in the pits earlier. We had a slight contact in Metzgersfeld. That was the Alantardis car, the number 24 Porsche GT3R. My teammate didn't judge it correctly. It was slightly wet and lightly touched the wall, but actually we're okay. We've changed the shock absorbers at the front and rear, and it's back out. Clear goal for the races to keep going and see where we are in the Pro-Am category. We'll try to win that category. I won that class with the Wochenspiegel Ferrari last year. This year, hopefully, in a Porsche. Hello to Simon Hill, who is tuned in, and congratulations, very, very proud racing dad he is, with another great win from Jake Hill at Snet at the weekend. Double win for Jakey at the weekend. Hello, Simon. Having a cuppa at the moment. He says, what a wonderfully crazy event this is.
When's Jake coming to play?
Well, funny, he says, we hope to see
or Simon.
Turn your mic on if you want to talk.
Sorry, let him there's me berating you. I haven't got the mic turned on. Let John finish. He was getting to that bit.
No, about Jakey. Jakey would lap this up. One of the things about Jake Hill I've always liked, since he was quite a young lad, actually, he has a great appreciation for the history of the sport. He drives a lot of classic cars. He got quite a few of my 1/18 scale Porsche models on the basis that I knew he would look after them, and he still does. He's got the 1970 Le Mans winner, the Salzburg car that I had, and he immediately struck me when I met him, having worked with Simon on ITV, of course, for British Touring Car Support, has been a very, very good lad. You can credit his parents for that as well. Don't get too big ahead there, Mr. Hill. I know you tuned in. And he's great. Jakey, very down to earth, and he'd lap this up, Bruce.
Oh, 100%. But, growing up in the Hill household, there's no way he wasn't just completely inculcated with a love of racing, because, Simon probably has other things that he's interested in, but they're certainly suppressed when there's racing to be had. But again, he's someone who appreciates it right across the board, all forms of racing, did it himself, but, Jake has just got that extra level of ability that adapts to anything.
Simon never got the breaks, actually, in racing. I remember when we were commentating together, there was a weekend where Simon, myself, Tim Harvey, it was at Brands as well now, it's coming back to me, of the 4 commentators, 3 of the 4 commentators were also racing at the weekend. And Simon jumped into a Formula Renault, a BARC Formula Renault, and was actually very good indeed, having done hardly any testing in the car, to the point where there was one or two eyebrows being raised because he rather shored up one or two of the regulars who'd been in there for most of the season. I was running around in a 3.1 Capri in the classic Tourist, and Tim would have been driving the Porsche in those days, Tim Harvey.
Did you also race that Capri at Snetterton?
I did. We had a bump started. Me and Mike Ewells had some bumps started. That started at Snet, actually, in a race the previous year when Mike was racing two cars, so they had to get the pit stops timed perfectly, and unfortunately the car that Mike was driving conked out on the circuit, and they then had to jog back to the pits. And with the greatest of respect to Mike Ewells, he wasn't built for that, and so Simon and I had a little bit of a dig at him and give him a bit of stick.
Bit of love.
Yeah, a bit of love. He did. I think it was one of the cars was definitely an MGB that he was driving. I can't remember that was what he was getting into or the one he was getting out of. And anyway, I got a fairly strident text message from Yulesy saying, it's a shame you can't drive as fast as you can talk. If you had a race licence, I'd get you a drive and then see how you get in. And I said back, I have a race licence, Mike. And he's like, oh. And that's how... I raced that Capri 2 or 3 times, actually. A lot of fun, that car.
Dan Harper, alert. He's back in the fastest car, his best time so far. Just remember this, 8 minutes 17.236, of course, with an out lap that'll be about 9 minutes. And actually, how are people going at the moment? I think we've still got a few slow zones, but anyhow, Dan Harper back in the fastest car, which is number 72 BMW M-Team RMG, BMW M4 GT3 to give the full nomenclature. But we were talking about who's going well. Lawrence Van Tor is just taken over from Kevin Estra in the Manthey Racing Porsche, but at the moment it's BMWs who are smiling. First, which is number 72 car, still second fastest is the Raffaele Marcello Rover Racing BMW, and fifth fastest is Van der Linde Rover Racing BMW as well.
Well, you say second fastest, but of course that car's been stationary for a very long time.
Indeed.
As has the 107 RPM Racing Tracy Cohn car. I think Nicholas Johnson was in the 107 Porsche at the time.
What a partnership that is between those two.
They've stopped, I haven't got sector 6 on my screen, but they've stopped some of that together and they haven't moved since. There's a way to go before the race yet, but of course we've got top qualifying tomorrow. We had this with one of the Rover cars last year with Kubica Maziak in the barriers facing the wrong way and Hatzenbach in top 10 qualifying, but it still got into the race. So hopefully, if the shell's intact, they've got a spare tub and they've got a free day tomorrow. What we're worrying about?
Nearly enough. Hello to Ruth Harrison-Davies. Hello, Ruth, looking after social media for Falkland Ties this weekend and tuned in and watching and listening. Falkland with code to Peter Mackay. He's done the numbers. He thinks Falkland's got their best chance ever of an overall here. And they've been working very, very hard developing tyres for this race. This from Andreas Roos, the head of BMW M Motorsport, regarding that issue with the 98 Rover Racing car. He said, we've only seen it from the onboard camera. Raffaele Marcello overtook a slow car on the track. There was contact. After that, he spun and hit the guardrail. We don't know any more details. Car's being brought back to the pits. We'll have to see how bad the damage is. Raffaele's fine, had no problems. He just couldn't get out at first because the driver's side of the car was right up against the guardrail, and that's why it took quite a while for him to get out of the car. It wasn't that he was injured on that. So that's the good news. Andreas Roos, the top guy, he's had a busy few weekends as well. I was with him in Paris last Tuesday for the art car reveal.
I can't tell you actually how much of a panic that can be whether you've had an incident or not. I've had that situation in a certain blue GT1 car at Barcelona where you've gone and failed it, stopped against the barriers, not actually touched them, no damage at all. and then you go, okay, and then you can't open the door. And then, because there's dust and stuff flying around because of the gravel, your immediate thought is that the biggest is
It's on fire.
Is it something worth? Is it on fire?
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, and even back in those days, GT1 cars, race cars, are not the easiest things to get out of and climb over centre consoles and out, because you kick and break things and whatever. And actually, you're advised not to do it. And that's where you get your team on saying very quietly, everything okay? And you're like, I think so. And it's like your voice goes on a few octaves, and then it's like, stay put, because they can see the outside, and you're going, stay put, there's smoke everywhere, and they're going, it's gravel dust, you idiot. And you're just like, typical driver, and you're just like,
I can smell fuel. I can smell fuel. Of course you can smell fuel. You're in a race car, it always smells of fuel.
Exactly.
Doesn't it? Fuel and grease.
My point is, that's where you need an engineer that goes, stay calm.
Yeah,
stay
absolutely.
calm, and that approach.
If you weren't with us earlier on, breaking news, literally I'm afraid, from the Dorian Pan and Iron Dames camp, the number 83 Lamborghini for Le Mans. Dorian, not the little French pocket rocket, will not be taking part in Le Mans 24. She has a number of rib fractures after the Formula Regional at Spa a couple of weekends ago. She didn't even do the second race there, actually, because she was feeling it. Rib injuries are awful at the best of times, because there's nothing you can do. You just have to let them heal on their own. But then trying to get into a car seat and get thrown around, it's not pleasant. Rahel Frey will be the deputy, the super sub, the newly minted bronze driver. Rahel, I think, will be relishing the opportunity, obviously not at the expense of Dorian, but we wish Dorian all the best. That will be very, very painful indeed.
The thing about rib injuries is you think you're feeling okay, almost every angle they're fine, then you just get to an angle, you've turned your torso by a tiny amount, and it just is shooting.
I've got an old rib injury on the right-hand side here, about halfway down my back, and once in a while, you did, what have I done? You know, well, you played rugby a lot, so you'd have had bruised and fractured ribs all over the place, wouldn't you?
The others would have had more than me.
Yeah, well, that's true enough. I wouldn't argue with you, Mr. Jones.
Fighting talk for you.
Yeah, come on, bring it on. I'm only 110
kilos.
Fighting weight. Right, I'm just looking to see what is likely to change. What have we got on the clock? 37 minutes remaining in this session. Julian Andlauer is one of the drivers out on the circuit in one of the two Falcon Motorsport Porsches. That's car 33. That needs to get a move on. It's down in 12th place. The sister car, Tim Heinemann at the wheel in the number 44 Falcon Motorsport Porsche. But actually, in terms of Porsches, only the Manthey EMA, number 9 in 11, Grello, is particularly well placed at the moment. That's in 4th overall. 8th on the time charts is Herbeth Motorsport with their entry, which is car number 5, and then those two Falcon cars. But because the session was interrupted early on, when a lot of the drivers were trying to use the track when it was relatively clean, we've heard some of the quotes, John, you've been pulling out, the drivers talking about how dirty it is. And it's stuff, you know, we all know, if you've never seen an event on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, you add, what have we got here, 128 cars out on the track, or that's how many started the session. 127, I apologise. A little moment here, a little moment there, gravel, dirt, filth, and then you've got all these slow zones, so it's really quite difficult to find your form. But to lose the track when it was at its best because of slow zones has really interrupted. A lot of cars could be faster, but they weren't at the start.
The question I'm going to ask is, Bruce, we're very lucky to cover the NLS for Radio Show Limited most of the last 5 years together. So we know the form, we know the Nordschleife. This isn't a brand of the NLS, although we all know that pre the N24, it is used very much as, let's call it data collection, is a polite way of putting it, okay? We've got names like Marcello, Markovic, Vantor, two of them, the brothers, Mapelli, Winkelhock, yeah? Quality people. They're all 4 seconds off young Dan Harper.
Yeah.
Where has he got that from? And it's an open question. It's just, he's
he is that good.
4.1 seconds ahead.
Yeah.
I know he knows the place. I know he's timed it right. He got that in very early before the code 60 and whatever. But he went out there, bang. Never mind putting the banker lap in that he's supposed to do.
No.
And just bear in mind, Q2 tonight doesn't matter that much in terms of...
Well, it matters not at all for these guys.
No, exactly so. The risk-reward ratio, so, you know...
So it's,
whatever they're paying him, it's not enough.
It's 5 to 11 here, so we're coming into knocking off work on the east coast of the US. In fact, you will have, so you'll have been tuned in for a little while. I'm sure Tom Marshall is tuned in. Hello, Tom, and to Jerry Z and the rest of the US collective. These qualifying sessions are nothing of the sort for the SP9 and SPX cars. The times they're doing now will not set their grid. In fact, they don't count for anything. Their qualifying is 2 laps tomorrow, and it's 2 laps once or 2 laps twice, and you can be good and only have 2 laps because you've already qualified for the final pole shootout. You can have, if you're going to have to do it twice, that means you've got to be in the top 5 of everybody else other than the 12. And so we have the fast dozen, the fast 12, to borrow an IndyCar phrase, who have already qualified through to the pole shootout. Everybody else, so that's another 14, 15 cars in SP9 and SPX, are fighting for just 5 places, and they'll be set off at 15, 20-second intervals tomorrow, and rain, snow, shine, whatever, it is that time that will then decide where they start.
So just 2 laps for them to fly, and the potential to make a little bit of an error on a 25, almost 25 and a half kilometre circuit. We don't know what the weather's going to bring. How hard do you push? But when you've got the quality of field here, the simple answer is you push as hard as you possibly can. Don't be going at 95%. You get no change out of that. I just absolutely love the qualifying shootout here. We've got some new camera angles this year, I noticed, around the circuit. I mean, how can you make this circuit look anything other than dramatic? But they found some other ones where you've got low angles where the cars are going over a crest, and I just love it when you can see the suspension movement on a car, points on the circuit, all 4 wheels in the air. Another thing I just want to bring up right now, we just talked about him, the driver from Hollywood, Northern Ireland, Dan Harper, back in the car that's fastest. So, within a trio, a quartet of drivers, some drivers are given the spade work, and it's definitely Dan Harper this weekend is delivering.
Dan Harper talking to the guys down in the pits a little bit earlier on. Let's remind ourselves, this is only his 5th race here, 24-hour race here, and his 4th in a GT3 car. He's never finished in a GT3 car yet. That's the first goal, he says. It's been my home here for a long time. Winning here is the top of my wish list. The car feels good. The team's working well. The conditions are challenging. On my fastest lap, the track was dry, largely, but there are treacherous, slippery spots, especially where the rain has washed mud on to the track. It's pretty challenging. It's going to get better. But as he says, this lap time doesn't mean anything right now, other than for us to feel our way through. Scherer, PHX Porsche, the old Phoenix team, 22 laps. That's the most active car this evening at RSL_studio, hashtag RSL_ hashtag RSL_ N24. If you want to get in touch. And what we're down to now, did you say 30 minutes? Yeah, 31 minutes to go. Still waiting to get a glimpse, perhaps, or a report from the Rover Racing number 98 garage from that car. See what damage, if any, is on that car and how late they might be working tonight.
I'll tell you a driver who's had a modicum of success here. It's Frank is his first name, Stippler is his surname, and I just noticed he's suddenly setting some very, very quick sector times. He waits until no one's looking at the button. He's about to his car is down in where are we? 16th position. Sierra Sport PHX Audi, and let's see what comes. The last lap was an 8-minute 45, so hold on, that's 30 seconds off the pace, but we've still got some slow zones.
Yeah, never to be overlooked, Mr. Stippler. Just to clarify, John, on the Dan Harper comment, what he means by never won here in the GT3 car is in the 24-hour.
No, indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not even finished here.
Listening, he has done. He's quite tied in NLS. He has. So saying he hasn't won.
There was it last season that the junior team won the first
First two.
Again, reminder that Neil Verhagen is on BMW duty in the States, so Charles Verts has been drafted in. Never an easy thing to do that. You could easily break up the chemistry. Those three had lived together and worked together over here for quite some time.
Literally just down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Shared a house. Out on track at the moment, Dries Vanthoor for Rover Racing in his BMW. That car, the number 99, the Vanthoor car in 5th position at the moment for Dries. And coming onto the Dottinger here towards the end of the lap, and he's lifted off there. He was in behind another vehicle. There's yellow flashing lights ahead of him on driver's right. It's where you'd sort of pull it off the tourist lap. So something big has happened there. I think they might be doing some barrier repair at that point.
Yeah, there was a flatbed truck as the last of the trio. If you get 2 course vehicles, it's semi-serious, but 3, particularly with the gap spaces between them, I think it's just doing one barrier, moving to the next section. So I'm just trying to see where around the circuit we have slow zones. Dottinger for an example, but that wasn't there, it was somewhere else.
I might just add, by the way, that Dan Harper is reigning British GT champion. One of these cars, so let's not bring it up too much, eh?
Vanthoor
got 4 seconds ahead.
Vanthoor coming to the end of his lap. Look, it's a ridiculously long lap here, and the top 15 cars are within 10 seconds. That is under a second a mile difference. You know, you're talking about, what is it, 15 and a bit miles around here, all up.
Well, just wait for the shootout, then we'll compress it. Because obviously we've got Dan Harper 4 seconds clear at the moment, 4.2 seconds clear.
If he can replicate that tomorrow, that'll be impressive. In the pit lane, Valkenhorst, Aston Martin, just about saved that one. Got a little bit squirrely, but wound on the opposite look. The number 34 car was involved in a bit of a bizarre incident earlier on when it ended up facing the wrong direction. It had clipped the wall. That car is on the trolley dollies and is about to come back out. It was Kuba Giermasiak who brought the car in. I can't see which of the drivers are in there from our vantage point at the moment. For those of you who aren't used to watching this race, coming to us perhaps for the first time, or maybe you've just forgotten, do not worry, even during the race, when the cars come in and then all of a sudden they bang it onto the dollies and throw it round at 45 degrees. It's going back into the pit. Oh my goodness. No, it's not. It isn't. And we have to remind ourselves that as well. No drama. That's what they do. They pull the car out of being perpendicular down the pit lane to an angle of about 45-50 degrees. They carry on fueling it and then they drop it down. The pit stop times here, you're not going to see Formula 1 pit stops. It's not what it's about. It's about being safe and making sure everybody in a very crowded pit lane is safe as well.
And do you know what? I quite like looking at a slow pit stop. You can actually see what they're doing.
Correct.
The slam bang off you go is confusing. So that number 34 Walkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage, Christian Cronjes, one of the drivers. Of course, great success over the years here, and Spa 24 Hours, he won that with Walkenhorst Motorsport at BMW quite a while ago, 2018 or something like that. Kuba Giermasiak, I mentioned. David Pittard, winner last year, but very much in the Aston Martin camp. And Nicky team, that quiet, retiring Danish driver.
David Pittard just out of the Aston Martin number 34, and he's been talking down in the pit lane, says this is just preparation. We're not qualified for the pole shootout, which is tomorrow afternoon, so we're doing a few system checks. So they're shooting for one of those 5 final spots. He said, I felt good today even when we had light rain, heavy rain on intermediates. I can't wait for the race to start. It's one of the most difficult 24-hour races in the world. Even if you're alone, it's a challenge, but with 130 of the cars, it's constantly changing. No 2 laps are the same. I like that. He says the Aston Martin is stable and better at high speed. I love that in these corners. The Ferrari, on the other hand, rotates a bit more naturally with the shorter wheelbase and a mid-engine. That makes it a little better, particularly in the slower section. Ferrari's a bit more on the knife edge, though, whereas the Aston Martin, apparently, this new Evo, is more like a cuddly kitten to drive. How many times have you driven a cuddly kitten, Peter?
I couldn't possibly say that on air. But yeah, well, I was talking to David about this a bit earlier in the year. I think it was for one of our NLS ones, and he very kindly did he didn't just send me a long message as he did last year. He actually did a voice memo.
Oh, he did, yes, I remember that.
It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's just brilliant driver information. But one of the big things he was saying about this, all these manufacturers make cars for customers.
Yeah.
That's the big deal. Yes, they get the pro drivers, and the pro drivers are advertising the product they want to sell to the amateur drivers, the Pro-Am fan, the mainstay of customer of endurance racing. And one of the things he said about it was the previous model had a really small performance window. So it was snappy, it was edgy, whatever, by comparison to the pro drivers could get the best out of it, but the amateurs couldn't. One of the things they focused on the design of this new car was to widen that window, open the window wider, to give the amateurs a chance when they jumped up from a GT4, the logical thing is then is a GT3 car, not to go to suddenly it felt like an LMP twitchy car. And it makes it something. I think that's his cuddly kitten bit. That's what he means.
I love the idea that the thought that Aston Martin GT3, all the changes. Adam Carter, who runs the Aston Martin development team, was telling me, it's all about making it more consistent for longer for the non-pro drivers, and also making it more serviceable as well. So when there are things that go wrong, we talked about the reliability earlier, but you know things do go wrong, and particularly you get crash damage. So panels that come off easier, fewer fixings, easier accessibility to things that you might need to change, like an alternator or a fuel pump or whatever. All of that stuff. And I said to him, did you really have to make it that much different for the non-pro drivers? He said, yeah, we felt we were losing customers to other brands. Now, the car that everybody tells me was the easiest car to jump into and get a time out of was an AMG. And I've got to say, I was fortunate enough to be given a go at Monte Blanco a few years ago in an Aston GT3, not to race it, but to do a test in it, a dozen laps or so. And I was thinking, this is really quite user-friendly. So I'm dying to get in the new one and see what that one's like. If they've made it so like Blofeld, hello. So yeah, it's really interesting. But this is a business, Peter. This is about selling cars. And when you consider how many Audi R8s Audi have sold, getting on for a couple of hundred of those now in its various guises. This building racing cars can be, and people are using the Porsche model, should be not something that costs you money. It should be an income stream for the manufacturers.
Exactly so, and for teams that want to run them as well. That's the point. That's the point. The previous generation GT4 Aston, what started as the N24 from here originally, go back
Graham
to
Humphreys.
So Kermit, going back to 2005, 2006, when that car came out, there are 160 of that generation of cars made.
Of that generation?
That generation.
Now they were virtually built on, in fact, they were built on the line at that stage. They were basically, it was almost a trim level.
That was because, it was very much so.
Yeah.
We had a very, very early one in 2008, and it was the N24, named after it because of that class win, was quite literally a road car converted, and it was an Aston Martin project.
Correct.
And at that point, Dave Richard bought in to Aston Martin and said, hang on, I own a company called ProDrive that has the rights to build Aston Martin race cars, so they became a ProDrive car, which actually needed to kind of happen because I don't think the money was there at Aston Martin. No disrespect to Graham, he built and designed.
It was brilliant.
I had a great conversation with him at Hugh Chamberlain's funeral about those cars going back.
I'm really disappointed I couldn't get to that.
Who ran those as well, and he said, but it just the money wasn't there. So he said, with hindsight now, he said he wanted it to take his baby forward, but at the time there wasn't money, and whereas ProDrive could do it. So in actual fact, it was right to sort of.
And then it came back actually, and then Aston took it back in house with the way they built their race car. N400, N420s, road cars, really lovely.
And I've spent quite a lot of time in the last year in a GT4 Aston test-wise, and it honestly, even a fat old bloke like me can drive it quite quickly. So it's dead easy. You heard it here first. Yes, I'll get my coat.
I've got a theory. It's just formed while you were talking about Aston Martins. I was just puzzling over the point you raised earlier. Why are there not more Ferrari 296 GT3s? I think I can tell you why. I think we just heard from David Pittard that was on the knife edge the whole time. So the pro crews can handle it.
Yes.
But could the AMs? Of course, if the AM drivers can't handle it, they don't want to be publicly shunting it here in the N24.
Very good point.
Or in the NLS. And I had a quick flick through my very analog A4 ring folder of the various championships around the world, and there are some quick drivers in them, but they're the drivers who are already quick. They'd be quick in anything, but some of the drivers they're paired with don't have that ability, and therefore those 296 GT3s, for a lot of them running them for the first time this year, are not in the top 20 in some of the GT3 races. In the hands of the pros, they'll be right at the front.
Which goes back to what John said.
Yeah.
It's a business. They're actually a business, and if you're not appealing to your customers, you're not selling them. And winning on Sunday and not selling on Monday defeats the object.
Just under 20 minutes to go. We have the bright. We talked about Kermit before. That was the original GT4 Aston Martin, so named because it was green in colour. Then it became yellow. Then it went back to green again. I've actually driven that car at Silverstone. Not raced it, but driven it. Drove the Rapide race car as well at Silverstone once. And Hugh Chamberlain, God rest his soul, was on the pit wall and lumbered up to me after that and went, "Oh, it's you." And I went, "What do you mean, oh, it's me?"
They had a way of making people feel good, didn't they, at the very best.
And he said, "So you've just been in that four-door?" "Yes, I have." "Can you not drive past my gentleman, please?" I went, "Why?" He said, "It took you about 15 minutes to go by. It was so long." He wasn't happy.
I had the great privilege of driving for Hugh in a few races in a GT4 Aston, and one of my abiding memories of driving for him was I got on the radio. My teammate had decided to get a little bit closer to me than I felt was necessary in a British GT round at Alton Park, and I felt it might have done a little bit of damage to the side of the car, so I radioed in to say this was going to happen. So Hugh very sensibly said, "Well, next time past the pits, we'll have a look for you." I said, "Marvellous." So you carry on. So if you know Alton Park in the UK, you've got Lodge and Deersleek, and you come past the pits, then you've got Old Hall and go down the hill. As I got through Old Hall, Hugh came on the radio, and he just said, "Dear boy." I thought, oh, here we go. He said, "If you wish your team to assess the damage on the right-hand side of your car, it would be helpful if you didn't buzz the pit wall, because we can't really see it." Of course, I'd moved over thinking I was being helpful. Have a look at that. It was like, if you stay on the left-hand side, we can see. It's like, actually, it's a very good point. Yes.
We were talking earlier on about a Brands Hatch meeting. Simon Hill was 17th, just behind Andrew Bentley.
In the Formula Renault?
In the Formula Renault, in that. And...
who won the race? Come on, John.
Oh, right, hang on, I can tell you that. Richard Singleton.
Valerie Singleton?
From Jordan Oaks in second. Andy Merrick was in that race as well. So that was the Bark series. Thanks, Josh Barrett, for finding that. And where was I in the final standings? I was...
Keep scrolling.
Yeah, I'm looking at class. I was third in class. Third in Class D, 25th out of... actually, only 29. I thought it was more than that. But
what won that race? So we can have give us the top three cars in that.
Well, Andy Rouse won it in a Chevrolet Camaro.
Fair enough.
He went round the outside of me at the top of Paddock Hill Bend, like I'm on the ragged edge of adhesion, and he literally just drove round the left-hand side of me. And I'm like...
fair enough.
But I was on the track with Andy. I was racing Andy Rouse. I was on the track at the same time as one of my all-time heroes.
Take it away.
A lot of big bangers in that. There was a V8, the McCarthy V8 MGB.
McCarthy?
Yeah. Both of them, yeah. The Ford Mustang, the Scarborough Yates car. Phil Hollins was out in East Morgan. That was a quick car as well. Very quick car. Roger Bennett and Chris Scragg was out in his Aston Martin.
Oh, the Chip Fryer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as it was known as affectionately.
So they all finished well ahead of me, it's fair to say. But I was third in my class. I'm just going to check that again. Class D, yes, I was. I must have a trophy for that somewhere.
You might wonder why we're not talking about any drivers going faster at the moment, as we've got just a quarter of an hour remaining. It's simply... there are too many slow zones out around the circuit, and at one point, I presume somewhere like Her Act, I actually spotted what I thought was the start of sort of very low cloud just being caught in the headlights. Most of the circuit is all right, and we're due to be, I think, all fair until tomorrow afternoon, where there's going to be a little smattering of rain, but right now they're just bringing it home.
Peter, can you check the tracker, please, for the 706 Glickenhaus? On the Grand Prix circuit, I believe, might have a problem.
Okay, at the moment that's 22nd with overall. Frank Mayer, the fastest time that car has done is an 8-minute 33, so about 18 and a half seconds slower than the very best outright time set by, of course, Dan Harper, the number 72 BMW from Team RNG.
You're absolutely right, John. It is the Glickenhaus is the 706 number is just parked on the right-hand side of the track. It's come through the Goodyear curve and got up towards the Michael Schumacher S, but not quite made it any further. It is terminated on the right-hand side there. It does. If the GPS tracker is correct, it's actually in the gravel, so it's on a beach holiday at the moment.
Inside the last 15 minutes of this evening session, Frank Stippler is behind the wheel of the Audi number 16, just passing the gravel-bound Glickenhaus. That car had power steering problems earlier on.
It's facing 90 degrees in on a left-hand curve, the beginning of the Michael Schumacher, so it's almost like it's had an issue and swapped ends and gone itself in.
It was on an in-lap and had power steering problems. I seem to remember seeing that on the ticker earlier on. By the way, if you're not following along, you absolutely can do live timing and scoring, the live ticker, all the results from previous events and from the test days as well. www.24h-rennen.en/live. There's a German version as well, and if you speak German, the ticker's up as well. However, if you open it up in certain browsers and enable translate, it will do it for you. My schoolboy German is okay, thanks to Mrs. Powell, our form teacher as well.
Frau Powell.
Well, so Stippy then out on the circuit. He was at one of the bigger of the classic meetings last weekend at Spa, weekend before, sorry, at Spa Classic, which was outstanding. We didn't get much running on the Friday night into the darkness because the rain was too bad, and we had to finish early. Saturday night ran till after midnight, and some of the old ETC, the European Touring cars, which have to run with the lights they ran in Peerage and not allowed to update the lights, which I think is a bit harsh, actually.
Going back to the dark ages,
literally, yes.
But you know, I, this time of year, when you've got historic racing cars and even contemporary cars on these great tracks here in Spa-Francorchamps, it still ticks lots of boxes for me. And if you've got a time not in the commentary booth when you can wander out to a corner, it just refreshes and sort of washes away all the frustrations of travel and everything else. But again, it's the diversity, it's the different engine notes, the different way they can handle, and I just absolutely love it through the summer season. Very,
very busy pit lane at the moment. Robin Friends has just left the pit lane in the number 99 the number 99 BMW Rover Racing car. That car with an 822 still sitting in 5th position. I'll tell you what we'll do we'll give it about 5 minutes and then I'll do a rundown. With about 5 minutes to go, I'll do a rundown of the class leaders to take us to the end of this session. There will be people out there still doing laps, of course. Been a long day for our camera operators, and thank you very much to them, because clearly we can't do our job even for radio without being able to see the far side of the track. We've got more cameras, as Bruce alluded to earlier. We've got 14 on boards. We've got the potential for 15 actually, so we've got a spare just in case. We've got the helicopter was up today as well, so for those of you who'll be following along on our World Feed TV or any of the syndications, will guarantee you a good view of what is going on. If you're a bit bandwidth challenged, or maybe you're driving, get your mobile device onto the car. We don't want you watching pictures while you're driving. That is far too distracting. But we'll give you what we hope is enough description on the audio side of things as well on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. All of the 24H sessions, including all of the race to come with no interruptions. And of course, the addition this year of the Saturday morning 3-hour race, Bruce, the young timer.
Yeah. 3 hours.
3 hours. With a disappointing 170 odd cars in it this year. Barely worth turning up.
No, frankly, just gives them something to do, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One thing that's just striking me, it wasn't a big incident. Raffaele Marcello seemingly caught up with someone else. He could do no wrong in the past 3 seasons in a Mercedes AMG. However good the very best drivers were in GT3, he was always among the top few and just delivering. He cannot get anything right at the moment since he's moved to BMW. Of course, he's racing in the World Endurance Championship for BMW as well. And he keeps saying, I'm learning as I go. And sometimes a driver just, sometimes that little top 0.5% or whatever, I'm sure he'll get it right. His form through single-seaters and onwards and upwards in GT3s. But at the moment, it's just being a bit difficult. And he's normally such an upbeat driver. But what I've always found funny in the early years with Raffaele, he'd say something, hardly even move his mouth. I know he's speaking not in his native, he's from the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, but you suddenly realise his face hasn't moved, but he said something really deeply funny, but you'd never guess. Yeah. And you thought, you have to go play that back. I'll laugh now, but I hope we'll get the smile back on his face because he's very entertaining. He's great on social media.
Good evening to Matt Deed, speaking of social media, who's got in touch using the hashtag RSL_N24, enjoying the coverage. Always reminds me, says that Le Mans is just around the corner. Yes, scarily so. Particularly worrying for the responsible adult who I know is listening in. Hello, Eve. Good evening. And doesn't like the countdowns to the big event. Back into the pits for the Glickenhaus. It has made its way back in from its gravelly moment at the Schumacher S. Matt Dean saying, would love to hear from Pit Man over the weekend. A podium in class would be a great result this year. Even more competition in class. Running one of the GT tyres, sponsored and running GT tyres as well. One of, we reckon, 10 different tyre manufacturers in the field this year. So back into double figures. Pippa was filming some social stuff last night when we were in the pit lane, so we couldn't grab a word with it. And reasonably, as I went up to doorstep her, Pippa, can I have a quick word? We just want to film this before it starts raining again. Seems reasonable to me. So we'll try and get a word with her and get her up to the booth at some stage in the race. It is a little bit of a hike from where we are in the booth to the pit lane on the other side of the track, but quite a lot of the drivers do take the time, particularly if they're staying in the Dorrant. They'll call in on the way over and just say hello before they go and get some shut-eye. So yes, Matt, thank you very much for that.
John, interestingly, the current provisional pole position car, the number 72 BMW, is being prepared to go out for another run with just 7 minutes remaining of this session.
That's interesting. Unless they're just going to scrub tyres.
Potentially so. They were just actually looking at Brent. There were a glistening stickered set of slicks on it, so you're probably spot on there with Charlie Wirtz at the wheel of that, going to go out in the last session.
Unless, I mean, there's nothing to say that they couldn't be doing a quali run, I suppose, but why would you do that in the dark? I'm not sure.
I think it's gone back in the box. Actually. I think it might have been good, but it did have definitely a new set of tyres on it.
This is the red Shell Helix car back in its garage. They're having a look around the right front brake caliper and disc. Oh, a bit of chat about that, actually.
It's pretty standard these days. They have a look around, just look for hairline cracks, because funny enough, they're safety critical components, so they're quite important.
Particularly here. Let quickly run down the class leaders from the bottom of the field up, still leading, and this is a potential pole position, remember, because for all of the classes except SP9 and SPX, the grid positions will be set in these standard traditional qualifying sessions. So 127th is a pole sitter. It is the number 152. This is the little BMW 325CL of Inge Erpen, Henrik Launhardt, Torsten Köppert, German drivers, all three. SP3 is the number 123. And that is that's one of the Molnar cars. Excellent. Marcel Duke looking after some of those cars, and of course Alex Brundle driving in one of the ones that will be at the sharper end of the field, I think. This is the I'm talking complete nonsense. I would look at the position rather than the number. Sorry, 275 is. Sorry, Marcel, I've given you a provisional poll that you didn't have. 275 is leading SP3, and that is a BMW 318i E36, all German crude car. VT3 is the Kievan Sports Racing 599 in 113th. The 711, which we decided earlier on was a BMW 325i. And that is leading V4. Adrenaline Motorsport have the V5 Parisian Fall with their 444 car in 103rd. The VT2 front-wheel drive class at the moment led by the number 96 Rover. No, hang on. That's not right. I'm doing that again. By the number 500. Confusing the position with the number of the car. With the number 599, which is another Kievan Sports and Racing car. I don't understand why that's not showing up on our timing, actually, because that is in the list of that. Who else have we got? Plus Line Racing Team in the AT lead SP7. BMW 240i is the up to race car. It is still SP3T lead for MSC Zinsigivi and ADAC in their 311 inside the top 80, that car. 74th for Hoffa Racing's 207. The Cup 3 is SRS Team Zorg Rennsport, the 959 Porsche in 50th. AT2, the alternatively fuelled cars. Actually, must find out what is alternative about the alternatively fuelled cars this year, because we've had various LPG, diesel, all sorts of cars in the past. Ford Motors GmbH in the 320 and the 888 Hoffa Racing in AT3. Different size of engine for those cars. SP10 Schmickler Performance by Ravenol in 45th. The Subaru still inside the top 50 in SP4T for the 88 WRX. TCR leader still well inside the top 50, 42nd with a bullet for the 830 Hyundai Elantra NTCR. SP8T, the Bilstein by Black Falcon car, the 150. Now, we've got two interests from RSL in that, because Peter Kate is in a car and Jimmy Broadbent is near that, and that is the Jimmy Broadbent car that he shares with Steve Brown and Mikhail Sharudin and Manuel Metzger. So they'll be absolutely delighted. I think that time was from the first session, actually, earlier on. I think they put that in really earlier on. Durham Motorsport have the SP11 class lead in 34th with the number 55. That's the KTM Crossbow. That's a GT2 car, by the way. So that's the full house, full fat, many horsepowers of the KTM Crossbow, not without its problems either in the early session. Glickenhaus are up to 22nd overall and lead SPX. SPX is not their target. They want to get among the GT3 cars in that Glickenhaus, the blue 706 car. And the second quickest class out there is Cup 2, the 148 Black Falcon. And that then will be at the GT3 Cup class car, won't it? Yes, it is. Cup 2 Pro. That's the Team 48 Lush car with Steve Jens, Tobias Müller, Noah Nagelsdijk and Morris Schering. So Luxembourg, a couple of Germans and Netherlands driver in that car. That takes us down nicely to just under a minute to go. Gentlemen, your thoughts on what we've seen this evening? The front of the field, of course, is not setting times, but of that front of the field, the 4 of the top 5 are not in the pole shootout at the moment, so they are laying out their stall, Bruce.
Totally. I think it was a case of just having to accept that they had to be confident, even if with the slow zones, as long as you're quick in the other parts of the lap, and it's a 25.3 kilometre, nearly 25.4 kilometre lap, you've got to feel that the direction of travel is good. But certainly Dan Harper got a lot of session time there, more than his teammate Charles Weerts and also more than Max Hesse. They obviously decided we just need to sort the car, working forward. But it is frustrating because at the end, yes, you can add your sector times together and they can chart your very best lap you could have achieved. And in fact, the car that ended up second fastest, the number 98 Rover Racing BMW, was only going to be third fastest overall, but only 2 seconds down on Harper, so much closer on really good time. And the car that's fourth fastest overall set the second fastest imaginary lap, if you will, just a second down, so they're much closer than the times you revealed there. And that's the Grello Porsche, by the way.
That 98 car after that incident has not come back out and turned any further laps. Is there a danger here, Peter, that in these sessions for the SPX and SP9 cars, where, in particularly if you're not one of the 12 that's through to the final shootout already, is there a danger that you are looking for one lap pace over and above everything else? Because it is quite important to be in that top 17.
Well, it's not a foxhole, it's a rabbit hole to disappear down, isn't it? And that's the danger. You don't want to be doing that, but it is important. I always used to say, and I still do to a certain extent, that, you know, pole position, front of the grid, top of the class, whatever, in a 24-hour race, it gives you bragging rights. Yeah. But in some ways, it's also a bit academic, because it doesn't really matter. We've seen cars start from the pit lane, have broken this or whatever, and you can still come through. It doesn't really matter. Just very, very quickly, John, the Bonk Motorsport BMW that's running the alternative fuel, it's a carbon-neutral, renewable fuel.
Oh, OK.
That's what it is.
All right.
Just completely carbon-neutral for the whole race. That way, it's renewable.
Absolutely the future, as far as I'm concerned. WEC are running on it. Quite a lot of Porsche Carrera Cups around the world are running on it.
A lot of historic racing is running on it. I think at the Goodwood Revival this year, every class of racing will be on.
Is that the guys who are based at Bicester Heritage? Who they do? I did a big thing on them when we were there for Flywheel, and they seem to be an awful lot. Mazda in the UK are running all of their heritage fleet on carbon neutral renewable fuel. And very, very good.
And don't forget that Paddy Lowe, who stepped away from Formula One, having been boss of a couple of teams, with his zero petroleum. Yeah. You know, these are the big game changers that are happening literally minute by minute.
Frank Mayer talking down in the pit lane about the 706 Glickenhaus. Right rear tyre went as he was coming up with the Schumacher S. He says, fortunately, I wasn't going at full speed, and the car doesn't seem to have been damaged by a trip into the gravel. Let's hope that we are spared any of that in the race, he said. Yes.
Yeah, but as he was doing the interview, he was sort of laughing a little bit, because he just thought, well, if it's going to go, it just went there. That was very, very fortunate indeed. But, you know, he's been around the block in a Glickenhaus quite a few times, so he knows how the car's going.
The checkered flag is out. We'll stay with this for a little while, and thank you for being with us today, whatever time zone you are in around the world. Good to have your company. There are still people that are on laps, although I'm not seeing anything that is looking like it's going to massively bother the scorers.
I might offer you one.
Oh.
The Herbert Motorsport Porsche, 8th fastest at the moment. Matty Campbell at the wheel. He's got a bit of a history in cars, hasn't he? And he's just whacking in his first 3 timing sectors of the 9 timing sectors around this lap. All green, all better than that's done before.
Let's see how he is in the very long sector, which he's coming to now. I heard the guys earlier on talking about the fact that there's one sector that is longer in time than a lap of Spa. A lap of Spa is 7 kilometres. 4.3 miles. That's not exactly a standard track. So that long sector here is very, very long. And if you are good there, and you tend not to just make up tenths there, you'll make up seconds there if you are good in that sector. It runs from where did we see
it? Sort of just after Schwedenkreuz, sector 5, and it runs through until the change point is, where are we looking? Exmüller?
Yeah. just before Bergwerk.
It's a very quick session. I was going to say it's a very quick twisting section that goes up and down. Well, that narrows it down, doesn't it?
That narrows it down, not at all. It's another one of those. It's another one of those sections, Peter, where you need to get the cadence right, because you're coming downhill first of all, down towards the siphon, down towards the bridge, and then you're climbing up again the other side, and getting that balance right between bravery, giving yourself enough room, and not scrubbing off too much speed going up the other side in that very long section. That will be a crucial section in the shootout tomorrow.
Absolutely, as it is at any fast lap. You need to have a flow. You need to have that tick, 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 the metronome you have on the top of the piano, that in your head, that left, right. The track doesn't flow that way, but in your head, in your mindset, in your calmness, you need to be all those inputs into the car. Accelerate, brake, steering. It needs to be 1, 2, 1, 2. It's almost like a baseline. You keep that going, the rest becomes natural. And these top drivers can drive a car like that with capacity to spare in the brain, and that's the difference. That's what they need to be doing.
How long did it take you to get comfortable? Did you ever get comfortable around here? But, you know, how long did it take you to say, yeah, all right, I know where it all goes now?
Well, I took some advice from a very sage and wise person called Mr. Wyn Percy.
Winston?
The week before I did this at Le Mans, actually. You were talking, obviously, on Radio Le Mans. I was spectating, and I said, I'm doing this next week. And he said, how good are you at learning circuits? And I said, great, no problem at all. He said, right, don't try and learn it.
Interesting.
And he said, just get to the point that you know what's coming up next. That's all that matters.
Very good.
People break it into 5 or 6 or 7 segments. He said, don't do it. Just as long as you know what's coming up next, you will be fine. He said, don't get phased by it. So there's certain bits of it where there are, you know, often hats back. Is it left? Is it right? Well, you've got to get that what I said, that flow in your head. Once you know that, you can get on with driving the car. And it was the best piece of advice that one of the best pieces of advice I ever had, actually.
Right, I just want to correct a little thing about the longest sector. It's sector 7, not sector 5. Okay. So that's sort of Kesselchen all the way through until you've come out of Galgenkopf for the start of the long run home. It's 3 minutes 15 seconds, a good time through there.
But that's another one of those sections where there's a couple of bits in the middle of this track where they look spookily similar, and except they're not, because the left is a right or the right is a left.
How many minutes did you say through there?
3 minutes.
3 minutes 15. I was having
tried 2 minutes 36.
Sorry, 2:36. Sorry,
2:36.
Because I scrolled down and there's so few times on the screen because almost all the cars are in the garage, which in the pit lane, which is a point I was wanting to make. In fact, some of the garage doors are almost down already because he's got clear track in front of him and he's absolutely nailing it. I'll just give you that target time
as well.
8 minutes 17.236 seconds. They've got far to go.
Here comes Matt Campbell through the final part of the Nordschleife. He'll explode into our view from the right-hand side. I'm waiting for the headlights. Here he comes across the line. There he goes. And did he improve? Where is he on the screen?
8 minutes 27. I'm just waiting to see if the time suddenly changes.
That car's best was an 8:23, wasn't it?
8:23.
So
sorry, yes, I was reading his previous time was an 8:27, followed by an 8:23.8. So
1, 2, 3,
stays 8.
4, 5 of the sectors were that car's best sector. So that's pretty good. Maro Engel looks like he was on a decent one as well. We stayed with you to make sure that we got that lap. 3rd position tonight for the Schnitzelarm Racing, number 11, the bright yellow and black AMG. 2nd position this evening for Rover Racing, number 98. This is on combined times, by the way. It will not set the grid. Remember, we've got a shootout tomorrow. First of all, there's 5 places up for grabs in the pole shootout, and then we will set pole. Quickest though, the Dan Harper, Max Hesser and Charles Wirtz BMW. Dan Harper doing the lion's share of the work tonight in the number 72 BMW, the Shell Helix red, yellow and white white BMW M4 GT3. No major changes in the rest of the qualifying sessions. There is one more qualifying session, general qualifying session. We'll have that for you tomorrow. Check the website for details of what time that is in your area. A fairly decent spread, Bruce, of the manufacturers: Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, all in the top. Lamborghini right there with Red Bull apt.
We've only had one non-German manufacturer winning, and that was last time around when Ferrari nailed it. The Lamborghini, we've seen it showing very good pace the last 2 years, but actually not normally for Team AB. They've come in to join. For years it's been Conrad Motorsport and others with the Lamborghinis, but it's just looked very tidy, and it's almost like it's had a rebirth. But this is the Evo sort of 2 version of the Huracan GT3, but it's a very strong lineup for the AB team.
Valkenhorst have the best Aston Martin, Peter, in just outside the top 10 for the number 34 car. But again, you're talking 6.5 seconds off. You're not talking about a massive amount of time. I mean, times that up over the amount of laps we'll do in 24 hours, then yes, that will be significant. That's a new car to them. Will they be happy with that?
Probably not at the moment. We don't know what their program is today. They're probably not worrying about it at this stage. It's an 8-minute lap, but it's a 24-hour race.
Yeah. Yeah. Cup 2 is hugely competitive. The Porsche Carrera Cup with the 992 versions of those cars. Not that far off a GT3 pace around here, and very quick in a straight line as well. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. It was unpromising when we sat down 3 hours ago. We wondered whether we'd get the weather that day afternoon. It's not been plain sailing for everybody. We had, in the first hour and a half or so of this 3 hours and 15-minute session, a number of incidents and accidents. There were still some damp patches out on the track. We had the TCR Audi, which was dealt with very quickly by the intervention vehicle, and that car has an awful lot of work to be done on it overnight. The Grello just beginning to get into the stride for Manthey. They drove that car up the road earlier on this week. They don't even bother with a transporter to bring it here. And into the early evening, the weather just about perfect. Don't touch the grass though. Grey is grippy, green is very slippy here this evening. So thanks to Peter, to P-Mac, to Joe, to JP and Bruce. I'm John Hindhaugh. We'll be back tomorrow for all of the sessions. We'll see you then. Bye-bye from the Nürburgring. Thanks, guys. Excellent work tonight.